And that promise that you're doing.
You gotta watch how you
Use it.
All right, everybody. How y'all doing today? Good, thank you. Thank you for waiting as we're getting everything aligned, both personally and technically over here. So welcome to Up in Farms. This is our second big event to have here. We are really happy to have people in our classroom here. And we have a little studio over there where we've been doing some other recordings. And our goal is to do a lot of these going forward and try to get as much training out of these guys' heads and into your heads as possible. But I did hear some really good conversation earlier, and it sounds like we could bring a couple of you up to speak at some point yourselves, maybe. I think there's some knowledge going on in this room. You know, we won't ask anyone to demonstrate any snakes. We'll hold back on that piece. All right, for now. Okay, we have a good group with us here today on our panel and people doing the presentations. Why don't we just come down the line here and everybody introduce it. My name is David Watkins, by the way. I'm with Up in Farms. We started about 8 years ago. And when we started, we were a produce company working as a food hub, working with farmers to buy product and bring it in and work on getting that to restaurants and grocery stores. And we didn't do that great. It turned out to be a really hard thing to do. And especially here, and we got out of that before we lost too much money on it. And realized there were a few big issues, but one of them was that there's a lot of inconsistency in the product that was coming in, and some in the standards of growing, and some in the way it was packed, and certainly with the food safety side, there were just a lot of things on that side. So we really decided, we would be better served, and the farmers would be better served if we put our resources into helping the farmers so that the product, when it comes off the farm, it's already ready, and things don't have to be repacked or redone in any way. So we've focused really hard since then on natural resources and food safety, but a whole lot. Everything today is all about conservation, natural resources, and production, that area. Okay, so that's enough about me. Let's go down the line over here.
First of all, he already said it, but thank you again for your time today. My name is Lee Jones. I currently serve as the soil scientist for USDA NRCS Mississippi Area 2. That area is about 21 counties that goes down from Columbus to Port Gibson. So everywhere in that central Mississippi radius, I help serve Mississippi residents looking to get into agriculture, those that are in agriculture, and I just try to help them improve their soil through various means.
A young, active, working soil scientist here, just waiting for you guys to give him a call. All right.
Yes. Thank you, David. My name is Delaney Johnson. I'm the Soil Science and Conservation Director here at Up in Farms. I'm a retired state soil scientist with the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. And I came on with Up in Farms about 10 months ago or better, and looking to reach the limited resource specialty crop farming operations and being able to provide that fundamental basic training that gets you started off on the right foot. And the right foot is, the fundamental is soil and water conservation and management. And I'm glad to be here today, and hopefully we can have a good learning opportunity and get to know y'all, and we hope we'll be able to develop a relationship in the future from this point forward. Thank you.
All right. My name is Dex Hewes. I'm the farm technology specialist here at Up in Farms. I've been here about 5 years. I've worn many different hats, but most of my roles work with either drones or our farming equipment, but also I'm our irrigation specialist that has been trained and is getting certified to help install, plan, design irrigation systems for different farms and different setups to meet different needs and help people get irrigation systems that actually work and keep their farm operational without spending unnecessary money.
All
I'm Reginald Liddell, II. I'm the soil con technician for Holmes County USDA Natural Resource Conservation Services. I come out, I meet with the farmers, landowners, and give technical assistance and kind of help them figure out what they want to do with the land, you know. Well, if they already know, it's a lot more helpful to me, but I help out with that part.
Excellent, excellent. So since we have a good, nice, comfy crowd here today, we really want to get to know who you are and what your concerns are, what your challenges are, a little bit of what your experience is, your background, so that we can make sure we tailor what we're doing to you and not talk about stuff that is like, well, that's all nice and good, but could you answer these questions for us? We want to make sure we get those questions answered. So where are y'all from? Just.
I live in Reginald.
You live in Ridgeland, okay, close by, right here. Do you have a farm over there?
My in-laws and my husband, excuse me, have land in Holmes County. So,
Okay, and you were interested in starting a farm?
yes, I am.
Okay.
They do cotton, but, and my husband does cows, but I want to get into the herbs and the, vegetables.
Yeah, we know. We're all over that, right, okay. We're with you there. All right, how about you?
I'm right here in Jackson, actually 3 miles away, northeast Jackson. We have 5 acres. We have an acre pond and a creek that surrounds our house. And I consider it a small garden, but it is a little overwhelming right now because I don't know what I'm doing. And we have an irrigation system that we really need your help with. We can't figure it out at all. Yeah, I'm new to Mississippi, here from California, so
Okay.
I'm just excited to soak up.
Well, I came back here from California as well, so
Okay.
yes, you're not alone making that drive, that
Talk
trek
about
back
the
over.
mountains one day.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And how about you?
Hello, I'm Jennifer. I've been doing a lot of research about farming. I want to farm smart and not hard. But everybody up here has mentioned something that I'm interested in, like drone, soil, and I have roughly, I have 25 acres, but I'm starting off the 10 I want to try to do something with. Because it's so big what I want to do, and I may be the only person, that's why I want to do it the smart way. With my irrigation, my water, my soil, I want to utilize everything I can, just in case I'm the only person that's doing a lot of the work. I don't want to overwhelm myself, but I need help from A to Z.
Wow. 10 acres is a lot too. Yeah. But it also depends on how you're doing it.
I know that's why I want to try to be smart about it.
Yeah.
Not let
Okay.
it work me, but I want to work it, but not let it work me.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. The nature will speak to you, and you kind of listen up and do what it tells you to do. All right. How about y'all?
We're from Washington. We just transitioned here, September of last year.
But Washington State?
Washington State,
Okay.
Washington. We don't have a farm yet, but we're looking to get in the future. We have I have a passion for horticulture and things like that. Always been playing with dirt, and growing things, but not in a large scale. So
Okay.
this is interesting to me and relaxing.
But Washington's got a big
Plans
horticulture.
to be self-sustained, we're trying to get some land, raise our own cattle, and try to stay out of the supermarket for the most part. So we're just a sponge, getting as much advice as we can before we pull the trigger and buy some land. But yeah, our plan is this year to acquire some land and start on that mission there. So we're here just absorbing.
Okay. That's great. Well, I think this is good timing for everybody then. And I don't know about people online, where your experience is, but if people want to let's see, okay, we have Angela and April and Brian out there have all responded at this point. And what we have here is a lot of beginning farmers. A lot of farmers who are saying that you really want to understand the basics. And this is the right time to be asking those questions. It is the right way to be doing it, to learn this. We are really going to try to gear our presentation today toward giving you good, strong fundamentals on what to do. Now, what you may not walk out of here with today is, oh, okay, here's a formula that I can go and apply. Because that's not really the way this works. Everybody's land is different, everybody's soil is different, climates are slightly different, and people are slightly different too. They want to do some different things. So needs will vary tremendously, right? But what we do want to do today is go through and help instill a lot of the fundamentals with you so that you are prepared to ask the right questions. I think one of the biggest things that we've seen is that there are a lot of meetings out here, and there's a lot of marketing that goes on in meetings, and there's a lot of information about programs that goes on in meetings, but what we miss out on a lot is the why. Why are we doing this? What is this for? Why does this program even exist? Well, they say do this, but why? And if you don't know why, if you don't have some kind of a basis for looking at that, for thinking about it, then you probably end up taking that for granted, like we all do. We just take it for granted, and we think that, well, that's not that important. And it could end up being fundamentally important to what you're doing on your farm. So let's start there. Let's dig in. Let's get our hands dirty a little bit. We're going to jump in here with Delaney, who is going to give us a presentation on the fundamentals of good soil management. And that clicker is set up here. And there you go.
Okay.
You should be able to see that back there, too.
Thanks, Dave. Good morning again. And I want to ensure you that you're at the right place today. You're here to learn more about what your desires and interests are as far as agriculture. And agriculture, that is utilizing soil and water, natural resources for what it was intended, not work against it, but use it and let it lend itself to the type of production or use and management that you desire. And what we're going to also share with you is the fundamental, like David said, it's the soils. Okay, and you say you were interested in acquiring some property. So that's good, because you want to have the property that is usable for farming and being able to have minimum limitations. Some of the limitations might be too hilly, too steep, too wet. You want to stay away from that type of areas and stuff, because you already start out at a deficit. If you got too much of improvements to make it farmable, then you're already at a disadvantage. So you want to start off on the right track, and you're here today to try to get education and understanding on making sure you start off on the right note. And so much for that, but like what we want to do today is talk about the fundamentals of good soil management. We say good soil management. Soil, what we say management, not make it do something or do something not capable of doing, not do something that is you're taking away from the integrity of the soil. You want to work with the soil, not against it. You don't want to, trying to make a mule do something you don't want to do. You're going to have problems there. He might kick back, might buck on you and stuff. Yep. So we want to look at that today, and we know today has so many hours of daylight, Mr. Liddell, so we want to move on and get y'all. So we're not going to try to pack 4 years of education into one day. So we're going to hit it and keep moving, and hope it'll give you appetite for coming back again and being with us.
What's the name of the website?
The world of soil. Soil is a fascinating natural resource. It's the foundation of life. Oh, that's what you mean, the foundation of life? What do we mean by that, Yeah, foundation of life. Soil is a living, dynamic, natural system. And it is capable of supporting plant life. We're not, and we're gonna get on this on down the road, we talk about human life, but right now we're gonna start out with plant life because we know we have to have food and fiber to sustain our life. And it is what we call, it's a limited natural resource that we renew it continuously. It's renewing itself continuously. What do we mean by that? Okay, you lose blood cells in your natural body. What does it do? Continuously renewing blood cells. You're continuously doing that. Okay, the soil medium itself is continuously being active. It's continuously living. And we have taken advantage over the years where we've come to know better. And when we know better, we try to do better. Soil is a living, dynamic, natural system. What we say, it don't just die during the, what we call the leave it fallow, leave it during the cool season where it's not doing anything. We think soil is dead. What we have come to understand, soil, if it's living, it want to live year round. So we want to take under that understanding that soil is a living, dynamic, natural system that lives year round. What do we mean by living? We look at the, what we say, is organic material. Organic material. That's the decomposition of material that decomposes, and when in order for something to live again, something has to what? Something has to die. Something has to die for to bring new life. Okay, so we're looking at that decomposition process. Things do not decompose on its own. You know, you growing up, you thought just leave it out there in the weather and it rots and it stinks, and no, it just things just doing that by itself. We come to find out there's a whole world that's working to do that decomposition process. And what we call those areas of those critters are microorganisms. Microorganisms. Things we can't see with our naked eye, things we have to look through a microscope to see. So we'll get to that sometime in the near future. But these microorganisms, they serve in the decomposition of plants, of leaves, of twigs, of matter that decomposes, which it removes the life, and it uses that for food. That's its food source. It's of the earth. It serves as a natural medium for growth of the land and plants. Okay, and once the microbes use this decomposition in order to get their energy through the carbon, through the contents in it. Like when we eat food, ourselves, table food, what are we eating just because how good it tastes? No. That's part of, that's what attracts our taste.
I eat pancakes every day.
Because it tastes good. Yeah, that's it, man. But we're eating it for nourishment, right? We're eating it for our own nourishment. So therefore, and I mean, we look at it as one thing, but we take for granted. But our body yearns that. The body don't care about how the way it looks and stuff. It can't see it. But at the same time, it yearns for that nourishment on a daily basis to provide us what? Energy, so that we can function. So the same thing with the decomposition of plants and out of a residue. The microbes decompose it. That's their food source, and they get carbon from it. That's their energy. So therefore, we use that in order for them to be able to thrive and do what they need to do in order to generate nutrients for the next plant growth, the next crop and stuff. Okay, so therefore we see how that cycle works. Everything is just doing things in nature. We think just be doing it. You know, it's another agenda behind that. You know, everything ain't nothing for nothing now. I mean, a person don't go to work and they just be working. They go to work earn a living to earn a salary, earn a paycheck at the end of the week and stuff. So everything in life, you know, we look at it and it's something behind it. You know, it's another agenda there. So, and that's no different from plant life and stuff in agriculture.
So that means if something's not there, that nature's worked all this time to get stuff there.
Right.
So it's working in a certain way, and then when something's not there,
and something's going to go at a deficit. Something's going to be lacking, and you're going to be able to detect it. But human nature is good at picking up something. I can pick up Mr.
Lee.
Yeah, Lee Jones. I'm going off on down. I can pick up Lee Jones' mistakes, his faults, his bad habits quicker than I can pick up my own. Well, human nature is good at about that and stuff.
You wouldn't believe the bad habits I've already picked up. Just sitting right next to him today already.
Yeah, but anyway, we're looking at that as a understanding of the foundation of the fundamental on just a building block on just what the soils are as far as their significance and how it contributes to the whole overall scheme of agriculture. What we're looking at here, how soils happen, we're looking at the lower part. We see down at the lower part, this is a soil profile. This is out of a soils pit. We're looking at a vertical section here. We're looking at the top soil up at the top there. We see where the plants grow the grass, but we see right below there is a dark layer, a dark zone there. And that's our topsoil. That's where the organic matter is, and we'll look at that in a minute and see just how that plays into the overall makeup of a soil body. But that's the living part. That's the living part. That's where our soil microorganisms we talked about. That's where they live at. That's where they thrive. In that dark part, that's where the decomposition process takes place, and that's where you get your turnover of organic carbon matter buildup, and then the microbes extract organic carbon from that organic material that they will make that nutrients available for plant growth and plant development. But what down below there, you look at the subsoil and the down beneath, that is significant also because that holds your water. That's where your roots penetrate down into to extract water from the soil. So this whole soil body is critical. But the top part, as far as agriculture, if that's gone, if that's removed, then you do not have good agricultural opportunity for that particular ground because you do not have organic matter buildup. So that topsoil is real critical. Now every other layer down below that is important also, but right now we're going to focus on that top part, the topsoil and stuff. Top water, temperature. Microorganisms. We talked about macro and micro. Now macro is macro is the large, that's something that you can see with your eyes, with your physical eyes. That's like your earthworms, your earwigs, your roly-polies, all those different things that are in that top part of that soil that you can see with the naked eye. But it's billions and billions, we're going to look at a slide in a minute, where the ones you can't see. But they are manufacturing, they are generating nutrients all the time and stuff. And they are active, but we cannot see it, so we think there's nothing happening. But they are living there, just manufacturing and generating. And I've said at times that if we couldn't pay them for the work that they did as sequestering carbon. We've heard of climate, global warming, climate change and all that. That's where the carbon, that's where in that zone, in that top zone, 99% of that activity takes place in that zone of that soil. Now, granted, you're going to find some soils have a deeper, thicker topsoil than others, but what we want to do as an example today reflect that upper zone right there, right below where that grass line is.
So I think one of the times we were talking, and I think Lee was there too, we were talking about the that parent material down there, and what happens over time is that that is where our soil is coming from that parent material that's well below it. And what you're seeing is water that moves down, temperature, and the impact of macro and microorganisms who are kind of chewing on that, breaking it down, and it kind of decomposes, right? So it's like, it goes from like rock, something like that kind of form, to gradually becoming something that's more supportive of that organic life on the top. And it also there's elements that come from above as well that mix in there, but it is a process of that soil growing this way. Lee, what was the number you threw out last time? How long does that process take?
To make just about 1 inch of that topsoil that we're talking about that holds all that organic matter to encourage production takes anywhere from 500 to 1,000 years just for the top inch. So when you look at these soil profiles, it really gives you a good gauge of how long these natural processes have been occurring before we came, started tampering with things. But we're here now with people like Mr. Delaney, myself, and everyone on the panel to try and alleviate some of the damage that was done and get our natural resources back to operating as usual.
Okay, thanks. And man has been charged to be stewards. You've heard that word, stewards of the land, stewards of our natural resources. So stewards, that carries a critical hat on what we are charged with. I mean, we are not to be able to take it for granted, but be able to be good managers of it and be able to utilize it for the sustaining of our natural food and fiber resources in order to sustain mankind. Otherwise, if the soil goes away, so does mankind, as we know it. Okay, soil layers. You have your organic layer, which we've said that topsoil, and right above it, the decomposition of plant and material leaves that are twigs that are fall on the ground. That's the organic layer. The topsoil is that dark part. That's a mineral and organic. That's where you have your sand, silt, and clay mixed with organic material, the dark material and stuff, the decomposition of things. Then you have your subsoil. We look down below where it provides root and stability and anchor for your large plant roots and stuff, and it extracts water. It retains water. And your parent material, that's the unconsolidated part of the weathering process. We'll talk about that in a moment. All soils, it didn't just start overnight. Soils developed over a long time, like Lee said, and to develop where it is now, the soils that we use in order to sustain. It developed a long time. I'm not going to equate it to years because everything is variable. What type of lands from Alaska, the lands down in the West Indies, Puerto Rico, the lands in the United States, the lands over in Europe, they were developing different climatic conditions and stuff, so it took different time zones in order for those soils to form. Okay, R horizon, C horizon, parent material. Okay, we see where those types of material that we call them horizons. That's the way we communicate. We say the R horizon. What does that mean? Okay, that's your solid unweathered rock, bedrock and stuff, like going to if you're leaving here going to Birmingham, going to Tuscaloosa, you see a lot of that chalk outcrops and stuff. Going to Birmingham, you see limestone, you see, not limestone, but ironstone. Ironstone, yes, in outcrops where they've cut slopes along the interstate systems where they cut roads through, where you look at that rock, that solid rock. And then over time, if weathering acts upon that, if it's exposed long enough, it eventually comes to soil material at some point in time. But right now, that's what we talk about, solid bedrock. And then we talk about the B horizon, which is unconsolidated material. That's your subsoil, that is soil, because what we see is the B horizon accumulated of translocated clay. So whatever that our material is, it's going to give rise to the identity for your subsoil. If your subsoil was some type of clay mineralogy, it's going to be a clay. If it was, like I say, ironstone or sandstone, it's going to have a sandy nature. And a lot of the soils that we deal with here in central Mississippi is either sand or clay. And a lot of it here in Jackson areas are what? As we know, it's clay because we have problems with our pipes and foundations and all that. And then that gives you notice that there is a clay high buildup, and there's a clay is not good for certain things. There's no such thing as a bad soil, but if it's used for the wrong purpose, then it becomes bad because it's not meeting your needs or meeting your desires, what you want to use it for, because you're working against what it's suited for. Then you have to do expensive things to overcome it. And that's some of the things that we've seen here in the urban environments in the Jackson area. Over time, we've seen why these conditions, why my house is cracking, why it's settling, why it's doing all these things. But this is not some we're going to get into detail today, but that's the problem because it's used for something that it was not intended to be used for. So you have to go and do expensive practices implements to overcome those limitations. And you can see why the cost gets so high out of hand. And then you tend to look for all the alternatives, and then we get into economic problems because things are being used for it was not intended to be used for, okay?
And by the way, if anybody has questions at any time, please, this is what we're here for. Let's make sure everybody understands. And yeah.
And we have the 8 horizons, mineral and humans we talked about earlier. Where your organic matter buildup is, where your organic matter accumulation is, and that is where we, as far as agriculture, as far as what's wanting to try to establish a good soil, health and quality, fertility, soil fertility, we want to try to maintain that. This is the zone we should be concentrating on, at A horizon. That's what Lee said is so critical. If we let us go away from it by erosion, we let it wash away because it didn't get covered or protected. We'll talk about that cover crop, permanent cover. We'll talk about that in a little while. But one of the things we want to do, the A horizon, keep in mind that that's real critical as far as us being want to be successful in agriculture. The A horizon is a need. It's essential. The O horizon is not a soil yet. It's what we call that decomposed and organic matter, leaves and twigs and things we see in the woods that over time microbes, they break that down and they use that for their food source. But when they break it down, then that leaves a organic material, organic matter, okay? And then that further decomposes, but we need that organic matter because that's where all the nutrients are tied up at. That's where your microbes, they use that energy to generate that type of nutrient, and once they generate and manufacture it, then it becomes it's not organic anymore, but it becomes inorganic because plant can't take up organic stuff, Plants don't take up organic material for nutrients. It has to die, like I said, it has to die, and then they take it in and then be able to utilize it for their nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Be mindful that that action had to take place in order for the plant, for the nutrients to become available to the plant. Plants don't take up organic matter. It has to be converted to an inorganic form that the microorganisms do that process in order to make it available. So that's how you have that natural fertility in the soil, and you don't have to go and buy triple 13 from the market, from Lowe's, from Home Depot, from other co-ops and stuff. The soil itself has a natural agent, a natural ability to generate its own food. So it's for plants if you let it. If you work with it. And that's what we're here today. We're going to talk about soil health on down the road, soil health. And we're going to see how that works, how that correlates into what we are trying to get to in order that you will be successful in your farming operations. Because you're a small specialty crop farmers, not 500 acres, so you can't afford to buy all that heavy, expensive fertilizer, Dave. So what we want to do is show you how the soil, if you do it right, if you let the soil do what it's capable of doing, it's going to generate their own fertilizer for that plant, for that crop, if you let it.
So that gets back to that first slide. You're talking about that world beneath your feet,
right? And
being aware of what's going on with it,
right?
And so that you can make it work for you instead of against you.
Right. Yeah. And but that's something that we have not known or been aware of in the past. We got to think we got to help it. We got to help this all. Got to help it. We help it by when your sore is trying to heal, a scab is on your wound. What do you try to do? What do you do? You leave it alone and let it heal. It's trying to heal, but if you keep picking and pulling the scab off, well, what? It's not going to heal. I mean, so it's all the same. If you work with it and let it do what it's capable of doing, and it'll be able to be productive and be able to generate its own food if we allow it, and in turn it'll generate its own plant nutrition, and we not have to go to the market every time to buy commercial fertilizers in order to have a successful crop production.
So all soil has some nutrients in it. Is it?
All soil is capable of generating nutrients. If we let it work with the organic matter, the microorganisms help to convert it. What's there, you decompose during the fall, when your leaves fall on the ground and when your twigs die and stuff, it's falling down. So something is going to help with the decomposition process. So that's what the microorganisms come into play at. They come up out of that A layer, that dark layer, and then they use that as food source in order to eat that, and that's where they get their energy. And like we said earlier, we get our energy from the food, table food, you know, when we eat. That's where our energy comes from. Same way microorganisms, they got to get their energy from somewhere. So they use that decomposition of leaves and twigs and plant matter that they break down, and they eat it, and then they get their energy, and then it converts into nutrients that are available to your next crop. So we'll look at that and get further detail as we move forward. Soil is a natural resource. It's transformation, what we say, transformation of energy, matter over time. It's not going to happen like you put some plant matter out there today and you got it's broken down the next day. It's a time factor that's involved in it. And what we're looking at from seasonal, that's why we have seasons. We have our cool season, we have our warm season. So those cycles, it helps to generate that opportunity for time lapses in order for different types of nutrient availability to take place. And we know where we see that, where we say temperature somewhere. Okay, our warmest temperature is what? It's during the spring from March to October. So that's what we call our growing seasons here in the southeast. Where we talked about, it has to have the right temperature, 75 degrees Fahrenheit, or I can't think of the Celsius conversion, but 75 degrees Fahrenheit or higher for 4 consecutive days, pretty much on average from March to October. So therefore, we call that the growing season. Therefore, you have our crops, that's when they're mostly grown. Okay, our cash crops, what we talk about, the food that we eat, table food. So therefore, we looking at that as being the time that temperature is at a base where it's warm enough. Okay, if the temperature is warm enough, you have the right moisture content, then what? You're going to have more activity with your microorganisms. They're going to be more active at that stage in the temperature in that time of the year. So you have your best growing opportunity to manufacture and generate those nutrients from March to October. Okay, that's the time when we talk about our growing season, our cash crop, because that's when your microorganisms are most active. Okay, now we're looking at from October to February of that next year. What are it doing that time of year? It's getting colder. It's getting colder. So everything starts slowing down. Everything starts slowing down. So therefore, it's not your optimum growing season for your cash crops and everything. You can't grow tomatoes in temperatures out there near freezing. So you got to look at that sequence of temperatures and climates and stuff. So therefore, you're looking at the temperature, the moisture, and all those things factor in when you're trying to determine your growing season. Okay, and then your non-growing season, the soil, it does not want to die. We say it's a living, dynamic, natural system. So you got to have something to give it a reason to live. So what we're going to talk about, and we're going to talk about maybe another subject, is what we call cover crops, cool season cover crops. Clover, rye, vetch, oats, all types of cool season type of cover that will sustain during the cool season, because that's the time that they live, what we call cool season crops, cover crops. And those crops, they have live roots in the ground, and then that gives the microorganisms availability or need in order to interact with those live roots that gives them the need to survive during the cool season. Now, what they survive during the cool season, we said that it's another benefit, because that crops I just mentioned, rye, vetch, clover, all these things, they are providing nutrients back into the ground, because they are nitrogen fixing, some of them, and then they are also allowing the microorganisms to still stay active during that time of year, because you have live roots. Okay, your live roots during the cool season, that is one of the things that helps the cycle to stay alive. And then at the end, right in February, we say from October to February, and then you have what we call your termination. We kill that cover crop and we terminate it through different types of activities what we allowed to be killed. So in order to be die, it has to be terminated. And then when it dies, then it become decomposition material for that next cycle. Okay, that goes back into the ground, and then you get nutrients from that microorganism activity on through February, and then come March, then you got nutrients in the ground. You got natural nutrients in the ground that are available for that cash crop season for that March of that next year. And I know I went through that pretty fast, but we'll.
No, is everybody kind of getting that a little bit?
Yeah, but I had a question. If you could go over, you said 70-degree temperature in the ground for consecutive, how many days?
Well, you're looking on average four consecutive days, but you can probably get higher or lower, but you're looking at that spread of days.
Okay.
And then the reason that is that, and when we're talking about 50 centimeters below the ground surface, that's 20 inches. You're looking at that 20-inch zone. That's what you're keying in on. And you're looking at that as far as that temperature being maintained at that temperature higher in order for microactivity to take place, because they're not going to be as active during the cooler ground gets colder than that. So you're looking at that average temperature of 75 degrees or higher for 4 consecutive days, give or take. And then that's throughout that growing season, throughout that season from March to October. You look at that, that's what we're talking here in the southeast. Yeah, that's your optimum growing temperatures for that time period to have optimum plant growth. That's the season that you use for your cash crops. That's your specialty crop growing season, okay?
Well, Grandma used to say, you don't plant after the Easter snail. That's when you don't have the frost in the ground with Grandma.
Right.
So if clover is a cold,
it can tolerate cool season, yes, ma'am.
why is it so much growing now?
Well,
Or is it
because
this is when
it's flowering now. See, just like greens. Greens will grow until then they start seeding. Okay, now then all that energy going toward that blooming, it's not going to the leaf. Okay, so same difference here. You got clover, it's seeding trying to reproduce again. Okay, that's the and then that's the end of it, right? Okay. Once it heads and flowers and stuff, and it puts its seeds down, it's gonna die. Okay. So at the end, it's harvested, it's mature. Like you say, you got the clover. Like you say, you got clover flowering now, but it's already done all it's gonna do. It's just right now it's at the end of its stage. Flower, send out seeds that its kind can still survive again the next season.
Hey, and we'll talk about this more a little later too, but it's a really good question. Yeah. What are you growing the clover for? Are you growing it? You're not growing. It's just growing.
It's just growing.
It's just growing.
It's a good thing for the soil.
Yeah. Okay. But there are things that some people may say, "Hey, I like the way it looks, so I want to grow clover." Yeah. And then some people are thinking, "Well, you know what? I wouldn't really want to use it, for its nutrient value, or I want to try to integrate this into a pest management program, right, to attract some beneficials there." Lee, do you want to follow up on that, or we want to come back to that later?
I'll come back to it because we got a whole section.
We got a whole section. We're gonna come back to that. So
we'll give a whole crash course.
It becomes the timing of those things that you start to manage that, right? I think we have another question over here too.
That was kind of what I was asking. I've been trying to find out why the cover crop, and I understand that part, and then it sounds like you planted at a certain time, but I guess you answered about the flowering, so.
The flowering, and then the main thing, it grows up in people's lawns and yards. Now you don't want it there. You want it because it's taken away from you in the lawns and yards. It's a cosmetic thing anyway. You lawn at your house and around your house in more or less cosmetic way we look at it, but really for a permanent cover and erosion control. But the cosmetic added benefit is cosmetic pretty beautification and stuff. So that's why we grow grasses on our lawns.
And we have somebody online, Brian, who's saying that he's used cover crops and compost teas for over a year now, and it's made a world of difference for him. So we'll come back and talk more about that in a bit.
Right.
Yeah.
And the bees like it.
And the bees like it. You're right, because it's flowering, it's giving off collect some form of pollen from it. Soil formation is a fascinating, involves 5 factors: climate, time, organisms, plant material, and relief. It takes all these things, like Lee had mentioned, in order for our soil to be able to develop over time. Climate, we in the southeast, warm and humid. Time, it takes time for anything, and for healing, for baking a cake in the oven, it takes time. You can't just put it in there 10 minutes and then expect it to come out and you gotta get ready to eat. It don't work that way. Okay, and organisms, the microorganisms that we talked about, they generate nutrients. They are the ones that process and convert organic material into inorganic material in order for plant uptake. And relief, based on your slope aspect. You have steep slopes, you have flat ground, you have different types of topography, and they're gonna dictate the type of time it takes for our soils to develop and form. Climate relief again. Climate. The weather and the climate, rate of relief for organic matter and decomposition. It takes time for, like we said, it takes time when we chew our food, and then it takes time before we be able to swallow it and digest it, right? I mean, you can't just put it in our mouth and it goes right on down. It's a process, you know, everything's a process, Dave. I mean, it's nothing in life just cut and dry, do it and quick, you know, but young people, we think we live in the micro world. We know you can put stuff in the microwave and finish it, and then you got some good to eat. But
I just throw my seeds in the microwave.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
They come out grown, right? Plants?
It don't work that way. It takes time. It don't work that way. And sooner we find that out in life, then the more we can all become not as stressful, and know that things are, if they're worth anything, it takes time. Like bass fishing versus I guess catfishing. Bass, you got to work with it a while in order for catch your bass. But like pond fish, like brim or bluegill, just put your hook in there, find that bed, you can catch fish all day. Bass, it takes time. So anything that's quality is going to take time in order for it to get to where you want it to be. Organisms, microbes and stuff. We've talked about that. Relief, we talk about slope and aspect. If the sun shines, morning sun, the east sun shines you plant your crops, and they don't get that morning sun, and then they have to wait till evening, what? They're not gonna get that maximum benefit, because the early sunlight, if they get that early morning sun from the east sunlight, you're gonna find you got your crops, they're gonna be more reflective, more responsive, more healthy than you get that evening or midday sun. So you try to orient things that you can get the maximized sunlight from that morning sun all the way to that evening. So relief and the aspect, it just depends on the orientation of things. You're gonna get a better effect on your crop growth and stuff. And we'll talk about that when we're gonna get a subject matter we call high tunnel. How that's gonna impact a high tunnel operation and stuff. Y'all are probably interested in that discussion also. And you will, pretty much all y'all. Parent material, we're talking about the weathering. Everything starts somewhere. Parent material is the climate, organic matter, relief, all that works on the parent material in order for plant material to develop into a soil. Okay. What constitutes a soil? Soil particles are a variety of sand shapes and sizes. Particle sizes can also vary greatly. Okay, we have 3 size fractions in the mineral earth. We have sand, silt, and clay. All have different size fractions. Clay is the smallest size fraction of our mineral earth. Silt is the medium size, and the clay is the smallest mineral fraction. Well, we need all 3 to tangle in order to have a good productive soil. You can't just have all sand. You can't just have all silt. You can't just have all clay. You got to have a cocktail or medley of all 3 in percentage wise to make a good, healthy, productive soil that's not only used for agriculture but also used for other types of uses that we need in order to have a good, healthy environment, healthy system, drainage, runoff, water erosion prevention, all this infiltration. You need a mixture, not just one size fraction. Sand is all sand. No, it's not going to work. If it's all silt, that's not gonna work. If it's all clay, it's not gonna work. We see, like say here in Jackson area, we see some of the problems because they have too much clay, okay? So we gotta look at that balance. So we'll talk about that after a while also. What constitutes a soil? Soil is organic matter, organic material. That's the most critical part, but let's look at the water. A soil conglomerate, a soil bed, you hold a soil bed in your hand, it's going to have pretty much relatively 25% water, 25% air. If it's a healthy soil now, not talking about something that's been degraded. We're going to have about 45% mineral. What we call mineral, we call it the inorganic part of the soil. We're going to have sand, silt, and clay. Sand, silt, and clay makes up that inorganic part. That is not living. That is not the living part. Okay, then you're going to have what? Up there, about 5% organic material. That's what we was talking about, that A horizon, that O horizon. In the top part where we need mostly talk about agricultural production. That's going to have the most nutrients that's going to be located in that part, in that 5% organic material. Just the 5%, that's the most important percentage on that pie chart. If you don't have that, then the rest of it is just, as far as in agriculture, you don't have anything. You're working at a deficit. That's what we were talking about. Locate a good, suitable land if you want to get into agriculture, because that's key. If you get something, I got a good deal on it. I got it for $500 an acre. Well, you better check it. Something ain't right. So when you plan on going to agriculture, you're asking for, you're buying yourself a whole lot of problems and stuff. But make sure you, and we're able to help do that. We're able to help provide those systems. Okay.
So when you're making compost, when you're doing compost, do you add something to that, or do you just let that decompose?
Well, I'm going to answer it in my own way, and I'll let the panel answer it also. But when you're making compost, it already has your microbes already in that enrichment material. Okay, but what you want to do is incubate it, put a heat constraint on it, that it will have that temperature that it will start breaking down and decomposing material on its own, because you already have those microbes in it that would help facilitate the breakdown. You just have to condense it and keep it covered so that temperature can build up, that you would have that breakdown into a composting type of operation. Anybody want to add to that?
What temperature would that should maintain, or at least try to stay at, if you are composting or creating your own or trying to?
Well, that compost is going to generate heat, because you're going to build up that heat volume. And
what temperature should we try to maintain the compost pile at? Like, you can't keep it uncovered, so you keep it covered. You need it to stay at a constant 80 degrees.
Higher than that. It's higher.
It's about 140 to 155 degrees.
So it has to be covered.
Well, it needs to be covered so it can maintain that heat content. Right.
So there was somebody, Brian responded to a previous question. He was asked, what kind of compost do you use? He says, I make my own from my compost piles. 3 cups in a paint strainer bag and a 5-gallon bucket of water. Pump air in the water for 24 to 48 hours. I also add biochar, fish emulsions, and a few other ingredients. This feeds the microbes and then reproduce. I then foliar spray and soil drench.
Okay, too much. Let's just put on the trash in a pile and cover it up.
So just throwing it in there is not going to make good compost.
It'll generate compost, because that's what the key features are, is compiling and heat generation and breakdown. But as far as making quality compost, now there's a recipe for that, and we'll probably get that to you. I think Brian has described a type of recipe that he uses. But at the same time, in order to maximize the composting process, then there's a recipe for it. But just like where you pile straw or any type of decomposition type of material, the bugs, what we call microbes, they're going to get into it and they're going to do a decomposition process on their own. But if you are managing it for composting, then it's a type of recipe process that you would use in order to maximize it and get the most efficiency out of it. But composting itself is not new. Composting itself, what we talk about, the decomposition breakdown, that's a type of composting itself. You know, but it's on just a natural form. But if you're doing it for trying to generate a large volume, then you would want to try to, you know, use a recipe. But composting itself is a natural occurring agent in the upper topsoil, the decomposition of leaves and twigs and plants and stuff. That's a form of composting, but you want to maximize the efficiency and the volume, then you would do the as a recipe for it. And we have composter practice that the NRCS helps provide that assistance. So we'll talk with you, Ms. Payton, and I'll get that to you. Mineral components, the basic structure and essential nutrients. Organic matter enriches the soil and nutrients. The pore spaces filled with air and water are vital for plant growth. And we talk about aeration, pore space, and we're going to talk about looking at that. In order for soil to be healthy and functional, those microorganisms have to move around. They have to be mobile. They can't just sit in one place. You have to have some type of system where they could be mobile and move around in the soil. Okay, we look at air pockets there in the soil. We said that the soil had 25% air, 25% water over in that pie chart. Okay, so you want to look at not soil be so compacted, like this tabletop here is just compacted. You don't want that to happen in soils. You want it to be loose and friable so things can move around and be able to navigate. So what we want to do is have good air space, good pore space, and then you don't want to have it too much of air. You want to have some moisture in those pockets also. Not free water, not where it's flooded up, inundated. You have water saturation, but you want to have a good moisture content, what we call available water content in your soil, where the plant roots can be able to move and navigate down through it also, and be able to work with the system in order to extract nutrients and water from the soil particles. It can't extract water from just when a place is flooded. It's no gravity, there's no capillary action, there's no capillary pull because everything is saturated or flooded. So you drown your plants. So you want to, it's such thing as having too much water. So and then you're going to flood your plants. So you don't want to choke it. So what you want to do is have enough moisture in the soil in order to be able for the roots to interact with those soil particles, to be able to just kind of suck water from it, kind of suction, what we call capillary fringe, what we call capillary pull action. Not no free water, but water that has to kind of work a little bit for in order to extract it. So that's what you want to have as far as available water in your soil material, in your soil medium. And that is what we talk about irrigation. We want to have irrigation by when it needs it. You don't want it to have to look for it. You know, that's like when you at home, when you have an appetite, you're hungry, you want to go to the refrigerator and get you what you want. You don't want to have to go get an empty refrigerator today, man. I got to figure out what I'm going to do, where I'm going to get my next meal from. The plant's not growing that way. When you got to look for food, it's not growing. So it's cutting in on your bottom line now. You don't need to have to suffer hunt for water. Don't need to have to hunt for nutrients. It needs to be right there at all the times. And that's what we're going to help with you to, as we go along with this class, is making that water and nutrients available at all times. All that plant needs to think about is growing, putting on growth and putting on production so it can bear fruit for you and stuff.
So your water is like the subway system for your nutrients.
Yeah.
So much of what we're going to talk about and what we're practicing on this is setting up the soil so that there's the right spacing within it, so that it's not too wide so the water is just going to go through it, and it's not too compact so no water can move around. There has to be some flexibility for that water to move, because that water is what transports the nutrients and makes it available for the roots to pick up. All right, so that's when Delaney's talking about, the world beneath your feet over here, that is what a big part of what's going on is trying to help manage that environment so we can make it really receptible for the plants to be able to uptake the nutrients.
Right.
That's the majority of the work.
Right, that's it. And that's the whole idea, is trying to make it available at the right time, at the right medium condition, where the water's not flowing through too fast. Like we said, all sand, like we say, sand, all one sand fraction is not good. Because if it's just sand, water just gonna move right through, risk wasn't able to pick up anything. If it's too clay, it's gonna stay there and flow at your crop. So it has to be a medium where it's available at the right medium at the right time in order for it to be productive and healthy. Okay, then we're looking at the texture triangle, and we just talked about the texture fraction of our mineral fraction, sand, silt, and clay. And you look at, if you say, you look at the sand at the bottom, the sand reading, the silt reading on the right-hand side of the triangle, and the percent clay is on the left-hand side. And you start at sand. Say if you got 50% sand, okay, it's going to go in one direction, and then you got 30% clay, you look at 50 and 30, and then you got the percent silt coming down. So you got 50 and 30, so pretty much you're going to have what? Coming down, you're going to have, where that line comes down, you're going to have 20% sand, so they pretty much into the sandy clay loam texture fraction. And we'll look at that a little closer when we do our little demonstration there, but that's the way you determine your texture. Sandy clay loam, that's probably the most, I guess, evenly mixed sand fraction on the scale, and that's the most workable sand, clay texture fraction that we look at as agriculture. We look at it as it's most workable land. Sandy clay loam, David, with that type of mix. We start looking at that mixture. It's not just one fraction. It's a mixture of sand, silt, and clay. For example, we have those sand, silt, and clays. We just talked about that. Okay, types of soil. I know we are what you call human species. We are humans. Okay, so, and then we break it on down. We go into subclass, subsets and stuff. But we're looking at soils in the same fraction. We're looking at a classification system on determining the soil makeup and where it's located, the classification. What type of features do it have? That's the identity, the colors, everything. So here in Mississippi, we are more or less out of all these soils. We have 12 soil orders we have come to recognize as in the soils profession in the USDA that recognizes. And these are, for instance, we have races. We have our, I guess, white. We have blacks. We have Native Americans. We have Pacific Islanders. We have all those different races. So not any different in soils. We have here in Mississippi, we have what we call histosols. We have spotosols. We have come to recognize. There's a small quantity though. We have vertisols, which in the Black Land Prairie here and swings through here in Jackson area and Scott County. What you call the cracks, a lot of cracks during when it's dry and it swells when it's wet, and that's why we have cracking of our foundations, our houses and stuff. Okay, and then we have ultrasols, which are the most common. They're most common throughout the whole state. They are red. They have pretty much loamy textures, what we just described. They're pretty much workable. The ultrasols in the coastal plains. And we have a few mollisols. Alpha soils, they're high base. We have those that are pretty much in the around Macon and Noxubee and Lowndes and all up in the Columbus area, where you have high calcium content in those soils, high base soils and stuff. And separate soils in the bottoms, in the creeks and streams and stuff, which they are developed soils. They're not developed from bedrock. They're not developed from the climate, the soil forming factors of climate, organism, parent material, relief, and all that. They're developed from flood events, the inceptor soils. Every time it floods, you have a deposition. You have a layer. Every time it floods, you have some erosion that deposits, and over time it builds up, and then you have a thick soil layer down in your creeks and streams. Now, intersoils, they kind of work pretty much the same. They develop through flood events in your creeks and streams. So pretty much in Mississippi, you have what we call our 5 soil orders, pretty much dominant histosols. Then you have your ultrasoils, and you have alpha soils and septosoils and endosoils, and vertisoils. Vertisoils, ultrasoils, alpha soils, and septosoils, endosoils, and some histosoils, okay? So we have about 7 of the ones that are from all textual orders that have been recognized. And they're showing the locations of those up in, like I say, Alaska, and that's in the cold climate. Permafrost, it stays cold all the time. Histosols in the southeast, sporosols, iridosols, oxysols, vertisols. But see, what we want to emphasize here, we have a system that's a classification system. It's not just drummed up, it does have a rhyme to the reason. That's why we call soils what we are. And mostly here in the southeast, we have ultrasoils. They are pretty much acid. They have pretty much on not mountainous topography, but steep to nearly level topography. They're most formable, and they have a good transformation of clays. They're not too clay, not too sandy, not too silty. They'll have that medium range stuff. And we talk about the climate features: carbon, light, water, relative humidity, precipitation, air temperature, light, wind. All these things factor into our climate. And one of the main things that factors into our climatic zone is how much rainfall we have. I know, like in California and Washington, you have rainfall pretty much all the time. Okay, you probably have too much in cases. But down south there in California, none slight. You gotta wait till snow melts and water come down to you. So it's just different in your climatic zone and stuff, the type of precipitation you receive and how you have to manage it. But now, since you're in Mississippi now, you don't have that problem. You got to probably have some more problems, pests, man, insects, all that. Well, you'll get to that, but you don't have the water problem too much. If you do, we have a remedy for it. Organic key factors, organic matter, texture, structure. We talked about that. Cation exchange. We'll talk about that later because that's a little bit subject that we need to talk about more in detail. But temperature, we talk about the temperature. It needs to be in order for what your growing season. It needs to be a certain temperature for a spread of consecutive days throughout the growing season. Soil management factors, tillage, drainage, and depth. So how deep is your soil before you hit some restriction and stuff. And then that's critical. We're going to talk about that, root penetration. Roots always what? They want to penetrate down, right? I mean, when you start seeing roots go down and go that way, go horizontal, something's wrong. You have a soil problem, you have a soil condition. So it didn't happen, man had a lot to do with that. When you have a soil that's compacted, and then you have plant roots can't go down like that natural physiology, they want to go down and tap into something, water, nutrients and stuff, but in turn you get twisted, got to go sideways, then there's a problem. But then that's soil compaction. That's a restricted zone that it can't go down no more. So you're going to have low production, low quality plants because it's been inhibited. It can't do like it needs to do. So that's a conservation tillage problem. So we'll talk about that before the end of the day and see what we can do to explain it. Organic matter decreases erosion, supplies plant nutrients, increases water infiltration, improves physical condition. That's all things organic matter is capable of helping aid in the improvement of your soil condition. Organic matter, okay?
Do people have kind of an understanding of that? Do people want more of an explanation of that? You have questions about that? What's that?
No, the root system, oh, no.
Okay.
He explained it.
Okay. Yeah. In field soil health tests, we have all type of conservation resource concerns, residue cover, what we talked about, leaving the soil cover. I know, just like if we go out in the sunshine and you have don't have any hair on your head, you have a bald head, that sun is going to get to your head there and stuff. So you want to have some type of cover, and then also you have some type of cover. Then what does that also help do with your head? It keeps it cooler, don't it? Because the sun is not hitting it directly. So same thing is with your ground cover. If you just have bare ground, don't have any cover, that temperature is going to get too hot on that soil surface. And what does that do? It's going to decrease your microbial activity because it's getting too hot up there. I say it got to be moderate. You got to have some type of cover on it, because if we get too hot, your microbes, they're going to go what? Down, or they're going to go just cool out for the day. Find somewhere where it's cool. Instead of working and generating nutrients, they're going to try to hunt for somewhere where it's cool if you don't have any cover, ground cover. So that's why we say continuous some type of cover. Always have that maintained cover, whether it's stubble or mulch or something, to maintain that surface temperature so the sun won't bear down on it so much that you don't have any microbial activity. But the main thing is you want the microbes to be, that's where they live at. You want them to be comfortable having to have a happy home, a happy environment, so they can keep producing, keep manufacturing and converting nutrients for you in order to have a good, healthy crop stand. But if you have the microbes, they have to go down and try to find a cool place to cool out for the day, then what? You don't have anything generating. So that's why I say, you got a man working, you don't want to stop it. You want to keep working, because you stop it, it's hard to get them started back. You want to keep it working.
Yeah.
You want to keep it working, man. Yeah. But roots and pores, biological activity, all these things is dependent on the temperature and the moisture, that you can have a continuous healthy crop. What if our body system shut down? What if our digestive tract shut down because I don't want to do? You're going to have a problem pretty soon, ain't it? You're going to have a problem. You say, I'm tired, I don't want to do it no more. Yeah. But you're going to have, so the same thing is with soil systems. It wants to continue to function, continue to operate and stuff. Role of organic matter, intensifying production. We talk about all the spinning organisms. Soil health, when we talk about that, it's the continuous function of vital living ecosystem that sustains plant life, animals, and humans, okay? And it's a combination of the physical, it's the biological, and it's chemical. It's physical, chemical, and biological. Same way with our physical bodies. Chemical, biological, and our physical. We have to exercise. We have to exercise, okay? We have a chemical balance. We have to have our blood sugar correct. We have to have our, I guess, lipids and all that, as far as the things that are chemistry going on in our bodies. It has to be in the right norm and stuff. The biological, we have to have the right chemicals in our intestine, digestive tract to function properly. Otherwise, we're going to continue to have problems, and that's what the doctor, when he gets your lab, he looks at it and say, oh, your cholesterol is too high and stuff, So how do you find that out? Because it was regulated in the whole blood dynamics. Your blood comes back and tells what's all been going on in the last 6 months. Your A1C level, it's out of whack, Dave. So they can be able to identify all that over time. And same thing it is with our soil systems. If it's not regulated correctly, then we're not going to have the right performance and stuff that we have. And what we're going to look at in a minute, what we call soil pH. It's to help, kind of like that, your thyroid. What it does helps regulate things and stuff in your body system. It tells where to go, where, and how much, and what content. So we're going to look at how that helps in our body dynamics. Soil pH, so it's acid, the master level of soil fertility. Logarithm of 0 to 1 to 14. In Mississippi, for the most part, for most crops, it's our pH level needs to be between 4 5.5 to 6.5. That's where you're most optimum for most plant growth, for most our specialty crops. 5.5 to 6.5 pH. Then that's the negative ion of your hydrogen ion activity. If there's too much water or too much hydrogen ions in your medium, is what we call acid. Your soil is too acid. And then you know what acid is. If something's too acid, then things are not going to behave properly because it's going to restrict the natural mobility of the natural workings of that particular chemical in order to get to where it needs to be. Same thing with soil. If it's too acid, then we're not going to have all the nutrients being able to be available to that plant root in order for it to take it up. Because you got your hydrogen ions in the place, it won't let the nutrient get to it because everything has a charge. Everything is chemical, it has a charge. You got too many hydrogen ions, a plus charge. And then everything is our nutrients, pretty much they are plus charges. So two pluses can't go together. They got to be a negative charge that's attracting that plus charge in order for it to take it up, accept it. So therefore, if you got too much water, you got too much of hydrogen ion, then therefore it's going to restrict the nutrients that the plant needs in order to be able for the plant to take it up because you got too much. So that's why we say the pH of 5.5 to 6.5 on the high end, then that's going to allow more charge deficit where your hydrogen ions are out of the way now, and you have more room for your nitrogen, your phosphorus, potassium to be able to become attached to your plant roots in order to take it up. Because your plants don't need all that hydrogen ions, they need that those nutrients that they need in order for them to grow and be healthy. So that's the whole dynamic, that's the whole makeup behind soil pH. It needs to be regulated so you don't have that hydrogen ion activity in solution that's causing other nutrients, necessary nutrients, to be prevented from being taken up by the plant. That's why we call pH.
How often do you test the soil?
Well, regularly, you know, people say every 3 years. But regularly, right now, for soil health, you need to do it once a year, at least once a year.
And then how do you fix that?
If it's too acid, then you're looking at lime, some type of liming agent, in order to bring that pH up to where it needs to be to make it less acid.
And it doesn't take time to do
it takes a little time because one thing about it, we'll go back to your microorganisms. Microorganisms come in, they the one, once you put the lime down, it just, you know, but some has to help with that conversion. So your microorganisms, they take in that lime because it has a carbon atom in it, and then they take that, and then once they remove that, then the lime becomes available to trying to increase the pH, because it being able to attract those hydrogen atoms, and then those hydrogen atoms are put made stable. Therefore, they are out of the way now. So therefore, the nutrients that need the plants, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, they can come available to the plants now. So lime, it takes away, it satisfies those hydrogen charges, and then therefore it removes that out of the system, so your necessary nutrients can become available. Okay. Now it takes like from 3 months. It takes them like from October to, like I say, February, because it takes time. And like we say, everything, in order for those microbes to get their fill and satisfied, they're gonna eat that food first. Like the dominant in a wolf pack or somewhere else or whatever, somebody's gonna get full first, and then what's left over, that's what the plants are able to come and take advantage of. But that's why, you know, they're the ones that are generating, so they're gonna get their take first on whatever material is supplied to the soil, and then so that's about from October, and then it's the cool season, so that's before you cash crop. That's why you do it that way. And because you got to give it that time period in order for the microbes to get filled, and then what's left over, then that's available for the rest of the family. That's available for the rest of the family. Well, they're going to get their take first. So you look at it that way.
And you may have, it depends on the size of your field too. Yeah, you may want to do multiple. Well, first of all, you want to sample different areas to be part of that soil test, and you may want to do different soil tests. you know, and you may want to do different applications of lime as well. And when it's important to know that you can either increase or decrease the acidity within that with how the type of lime that you use. It's also important to know that lime comes in different sizes, like the granules. They can be big or they can be small. And when, you know, and that gets to do with the timing of when you apply it as well. Now, for example, the small particles, the small granules are going to get into the soil quicker, right? But they're also really susceptible to runoff. Let's say there's a rain that happens right after you put the lime in, you know, and that's gone. It's gone. You know, so the bigger ones, the bigger granules are going to take longer to break down, you know, but they're less susceptible to runoff. So there are a lot of issues like that you might want to think about. And also how much lime you need is a combination of where your soil currently is, but also what you're going to grow in it. So we'll see in a minute that different plants have some different needs for pH. Mm-hmm. You don't grow everything the same.
Right. Right. And soil pH guidelines, soil pH is pretty much from on the scale of 4.0 to 8.3. 8.3, anything above 7. 7 is neutral. 7 is your neutral zone, 7.0. Okay, when you get above 7, you're going to alkalinity. And a lot of plants, they are not in that alkalinity zone here that we grow in the southeast. So we try to stay in that slightly acid, medium acid to slightly acid to medium acid, 5.5 to 6.5.
And that last bullet down there was what Delaney was talking about earlier.
Oh.
The there you go. But about how when carbon dioxide reacts with water in the soil to form carbonic acid, which then reacts with calcium to form calcium bicarbonate, and then release 2 hydrogen ions within the soil. So it's the release of the hydrogen ions within the soil that that's part of what ends up resulting in the lower pH.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes, that's it. Okay, thanks, Dave. And we're looking at medium acid, the availability for in general. Your nitrogen is available at very slightly acid to very slightly alkaline pHs. You see that broad line there. And phosphorus, you see where its availability is for the most part, potassium and sulfur. So you see where the essential nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium is right there between that, in that zone, like say the 5.5 to 6.5. That's pretty much where that is. And if you keep your pH at that level and then in that zone, then you're pretty much in good standing for most crops that are grown here in the southeast, for your specialty crops. So. And then you see your minor elements, iron, manganese, and boron. You see, we have, if your plants call for that, then it needs to be looked at not lime at all. You probably need to, I guess, another lowering of the pH would be sulfur. Mm-hmm. That you would sulfur that you would lower the pH with. Use that agent to lower your pH is due to attract those type of elements in order to your different type plants if it calls for that now. But when somebody asks about soil test, how you should do your soil test, you should specify what type of crops you want grown when you are doing your soil application to submit your samples. Specify the type of crop you expect to grow. Then they'll give you that readout report on what type of nutrients you need and what type of way to prepare your soil.
And when you think about it like this too, and you look at this kind of scale in here, then it's like you understand that the presence of iron in there can, if something is happening to contribute more iron in there, it's probably going to mean that you're going to have less calcium available too. You know, so there's a reciprocal relationship on that between the direction that it's moving, the acidity and the availability of all of those nutrients.
Right. Managing soil pH, like we said, we were talking about your organic matter and the availability that nutrients, certain nutrients become less available in high acid soils and high alkalinity soils. So you have to know which type of plant you want, or crop you want to grow in order to have the right report from your soil test analysis. Okay, it's a balancing act. And the alkalinity versus neutral, and the middle is, like I say, pH is 7. The balance or rather imbalance plays a critical role in soil fertility. Okay, you have to know what type of crop you want to grow. You got to know your soil fertility, existing soil level as far as nutrient content and the desired plant that you want to grow. So, and then your soil analysis would kick out that information to help provide you and steer you in the right direction as far as having a healthy crop. Okay, pH gatekeeper there. Soil is important and should not be overlooked. Micronutrients. Macronutrients are nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Like we said, that's where they're going to be on pretty much all your fertilizers. They're going to make sure they have those in supply at any type of outlet of Lowe's, Home Depot, or your co-ops that you purchase from. Now your micro nutrients, iron, manganese, zinc, all these are essential. But if a plant requires that in order to be healthy, then these are some of the minor nutrients that you need to look for on that package. You may have to ask for these fertilizers, but you know, if that's what the plant calls for that you need, then that's what you need to consider acquiring.
And you can also tell a little bit of that by the level of acidity or non-acidity of your pH.
Right, right. And these are, there's a table here showing you, for instance, tomatoes. Is showing that you need some phosphorus, calcium, and magnesium, and sulfur.
And they need a lot of everything else.
A lot of everything else, yeah.
So that's green. If those things are green, that means that those plants need those materials. So everything needs carbon, oxygen, hydrogen. But some need a little less nitrogen than others. So those wide areas show that they don't need quite as much nitrogen. So that's just something to think about. These are small things that can come into play when you're planning and trying to get that delicate balance right, you know, under the ground.
Now, if you go down there and look at collard greens, you see where the nitrogen bar is, it's completely filled, right? Yeah. Okay.
So that was like the easiest.
We're recording this whole thing. Yes. By the way, you can see the cameras back here and everything. So we're recording this whole thing, and we'll edit this and put that online. But we can also make sure you get copies of,
right?
You know, of the slides. Yes.
I
Right.
feel like I did everything wrong now. I got a whole bunch of that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, that's part of the learning process. Look, you fall a lot when you learn to ride a bike. It ain't no different over here.
And also look at legumes. Legumes have their own nitrogen fixing. And that's what you see that bar is not all the way across because legumes have the ability to fix their own nitrogen. So you do not need additional amendments for the most part on that. So you have to know your plants and know what it needs and stuff. Okay, water versus soil pH. pH is level of acidity of alkalinity into solution. We say the hydrogen ions is what's the kicker. If it's hydrogen ion just floating around into the solution, then they're going to be causing problems. That's the bottom line. And the more you can manage those hydrogen ions as far as your soil pH, the better off you'll be as far as understanding how nutrient is available or not available to your plants for uptake. H2O, what is water? You have 2 hydrogen ions and 1 oxygen atom. Okay, you got 2, so you got your oxygen, and when it moves from that, then you just got 2 hydrogen ions in solution, right? Okay. It's the real world. Oh, you want to say something?
No, I was just saying, yeah, you see in on that last slide, yeah, and if we have any chemists in the audience, today too as well, but so in the real world, it's not just H2O, it's not just one little thing, but these things are connected together. Lots of H2Os connect to each other, and they're constantly forming these connections. And they hold other things in them as well, and that's the interesting thing. You put, you have your tea in your honey in your water. There are other things that are moving within them. So it's not just H2O. It's the bonding and unbonding of hydrogen within that.
Yeah, right.
And that is significant, as you're seeing on that next slide. Yeah.
Okay, the polar covalent, you see your hydrogen ions, they're trying to attract in the oxygen. Hydrogen is a plus and oxygen is a negative charge, so it's trying to find those connections. But if we don't find those connections, then it's out in solution. And then if it's in solution, it's trying to find a host, and then it gets in the way of the nutrients that are trying to attract to the plants. Chlorine. Available water is the holding capacity that relates to total crop available holding potential between the wilting point and field capacity. We say you do not want saturated, not want you to feel the pores saturated, because that's going to drown your crops, and that's going to make your soil condition in a different state. If you don't have any, if it's all your pores are filled with water, then you don't have any air. Okay, then you've gone from aerobic, because all your oxygen has been removed, and you just have water, and it is not making your nutrients available to your plants, because you're going into an aerobic situation, and then you're going to have a different set of microorganisms become active then, which are not good for plant nutrient uptake. If your soil is flooded or ponded, that's when you say irrigation, what Dexter talked about in his speech. You cannot have too much water, but you need to have the right amount, which is called field capacity, that has water that's available to your plants at all times, that it has the right capillary action pull, that it can take it up. So I know I had some people used to water irrigate every day. Then we find out in soil health practices, it's not necessary to irrigate every day. If you got a good soil health practice, you got good mulching, got a good cover, some type of residue on top of it, it's going to maintain that moisture. So that for everyday irrigation, it needs to be monitored. I know you say you want most information on irrigation, because that is a waste of water. I mean, you're putting water out there that's not necessary. So that's not good sound management. So therefore, we want to try to make sure we have the adequate amount that it needs at that time. Just like when we as humans, we overeat, that is what we do. We get, it's not good. I put it that way, I leave it at that. It's not good when we overeat and stuff. Yeah, so, and we're going to get sleepy and then not going to be healthy. Okay. Water retention. Okay, capillary action, that's where we have your pores filled, and it's also known as capillary process, narrow spaces. And between, like I said, what we say, what percent water a soil contain? 25%, great. And what we're looking at is around each soil particle, we're gonna look at that. It's a water film. It's a water film that's coating, that's encapsulated. Each soil particle in a optimum condition. Now we're not talking about in drought like I had here back in last part of last year. We're talking in optimum conditions where you have good healthy soil. You're going to have 25% water, 25% airspace, 45% mineral, and 5% organic matter. Okay, in context of soil capillary action. Soil ability to retain, transmit water and nutrients is influenced by its texture, structure, and organic matter content. The soil's ability to retain and transmit water And nutrients is influenced by its texture, its structure, and organic matter content, okay? You have all those three entangling, then you're gonna have a pretty healthy system if it's imbalanced and working properly.
So there's a difference between texture and structure?
Yes, texture is the amount of sand, silt, and clay particles, okay? The amount of sand, silt, and clay particles, the percentage. What we say in the texture triangle, you had 50% sand, 30% clay, silt, then we got 20% silt. Okay, so in that combination. Okay, so that's your texture. Okay, your structure, what is the structure? It's the way they come together. What size shapes do they form? What size? And then the shapes, then that has indicative or direct influence on the way your roots can trickle down through it, can narrow down through your structure of the sand, silt, and clay, what make up the structure. Sand, silt, and clay particles, they make up the structure. Like if you have, and then if you get all the materials and you press it together, sand, silt, and clay, okay, and then whatever it shapes out, okay, that's that structure. But it's the arrangement of what that shape looks like once you put those three together.
So the texture is definite, right? You can't change the texture of a soil, but you can modify the structure.
Well, you can now you change the texture by your tillage. You break up the clods and you what we call reduced till now, and we're trying to remove away from that because conventional tillage, that's where you break up your clods and you make them all different shapes, which are your clods in natural, then they are, have their own identity. Angular blocky, subangular blocky, and all those different things. But what we want to do is make sure you have some type of configuration where they have pore space is well aerated between those clods. Is what we are trying to shoot for. That's our goal, is to make sure those clods are segregated enough that you have good root penetration down through and not restricted root penetration.
And that's the part we can influence.
Right.
We can't turn clay into soil or clay into silt or.
No, you have to try to regulate the restriction and the compaction of that type of structure. To make aggregates, good aggregated soil, you want to make sure they are aggregated enough that you got good air space and pockets and good root distribution opportunity. So, yeah. Okay, soil texture and capillary action. Good infiltration, you see where it has a mixture, you have some, look like some other material added with the organic matter, and where you have good infiltration. Okay, and that's a soil clod. That's what we were talking about. That's what Dave was talking about in a minute. What she holding in her right hand, that's a soil clod. That's a type of structure, and you see how it's irregularly shaped. But now you can break, and we'll look at that during our lab exercise after lunch. You can break it, and it'll sub to break down into other smaller style structures. It'll break down from blocky to angular blocky to subangular blocky. It just depends on how much clay it has in it. Now sand, you can't do that because if you got it's all sand, it just disintegrates. Sand does not have structure. They are structureless. Just sand is structureless. It don't come together to form any type of structure because you can't hold it together. Does not have what in it. What we call things to stick together, come together? Clay. So it don't have sand. If it don't have clay in it, it can't cohere together. So you don't have any structure. Then that's when water just moves right down through sand. Don't have nothing to hold it. It just don't have any exchange sites. Just because our sand is just grit, quartz and stuff. So you don't have any type of structure. So it's not a good, sand itself is not a good soil for agriculture. It's not good sand alone. Okay, organic matter and capillary action going down. We see where you got good opportunity for infiltration and retention, water retention. what do we say, water retention? You don't just want water to just go right down. You want it to be retained for a while for what? For roots to have time to take it up, for roots to have time to intercept it, and plant roots to take up that water, that moisture and stuff. Because if it ran down too fast, then it's just, and when it goes out of the rooting zone, it's no good. It's gone somewhere, but it didn't do the plants any good. So, you know.
So is it like with that, we have those kind of macro pores and micro pores, and the microorganisms are they're secreting a glue, basically, that helps bind together the soil particles into aggregates that do a good job of both retaining enough water so that the water just doesn't run through, but also not allowing it to become waterlogged and tie up some of the nutrients. So this whole process here is about trying to get the right balance, so you have aggregates in there, so that soil that may not work initially very well, that's the part of it that you can help change.
Yeah, right, with the organic matter, right. And organic matter, that's what you're saying, the organic, and that's really the poop, what microorganisms excrete, that helps, make that kind of little glue or a little adhesive coherence with the soil particles in order for them to have that ability to cohere and be able to retain water. That's how organic matter plays a key role in water management and water retention. It's the excrement, pretty much what they release, and it bonds with the soil particles to make it have a kind of sticky effect.
And that could be one of the most important things you take out of today overall. I think, there's a lot of information there, but it's like, that's one of the key things you're really trying to manage underneath the ground. It's something you can't really see, but you're trying to create that environment where that soil can do its best to retain the water, so that water can do its job of making the nutrients available to the plant roots.
Right. That's it. And we see how, so that 5%, what we were talking about, we can see how that's so important in the critical, in the whole makeup of good, successful, healthy soil medium for plant growth. Okay, and these are the functions, and we look at the one on the far left there, where we see clay. We see a lot of exchange sites, because clay mineral, that's where the soil nutrients they can adhere to, and they're making it available for our plant roots. If you didn't have any clay in your soil medium, then your plants would not be able to extract the proper nutrients that it needed in order for plant growth. So that's why you need some clay. You don't need too much, but need some in order for it to be exchange sites for those nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, zinc, all those different things attached to that clay particle. Microbial activity. We see white clays, and we see all that mentally of different types of constituents. But all those three, it takes all those to tango in order to have a healthy soil medium. We see fungi, we see pore space, we see plant roots and stuff. All those things will have in a system, or in a, ecosystem, where they're interacting and they're dependent on each other for their sustainability and survival and breakdown and processing. But at the same time, it's necessary for plant roots to be able to take advantage of that opportunity to get the benefits from the availability of those nutrients, because you have the pore space, you have the plant roots, you have the fungi, you have all these different things which allows to have a good, healthy rooting system in order for plants to be able to germinate. Now, all this is going on underground now as we speak. And but we are not aware of it, because we can't see it, out of sight, out of mind. But at the same time, it's taking place. Okay, pore space, fungi, microbes and stuff. And we see that network of plant roots they trying to get down and extract those nutrients and stuff. Okay, soil moisture availability. We see saturation on the left. In that slide, we see field capacity, we see some water, but we see some air pockets too. But saturation, that's bad. Pore space are full of water. Gravitational water is lost. What we say gravitational capillary water, that's lost. Water can't extract, and plants can't extract this free water, it can't extract the nutrients that it needs because it's running into solution. Okay, in wilting point, no water at all, just dry soil, what we had this past year, dry soil, and then what we saw, everything it's dying, everything started dying. And when things start having no water, surface water become unhealthy. And then that's where you have an invasion of insects. Insects come in and invade a weak species, a weak crop. We see our pine trees, other trees, they get lost and dying and stuff because of water loss, and they couldn't get the adequate water to stay healthy. So we had a weak specimen, then things come in to take advantage of it, and we'll talk about that in another part of it.
It's like, what happens what might happen, what might you think happens when a plant has insufficient water?
Wither up and down.
What's that?
Wither up and down.
Right. Well, it's going to lose some of its protective layers, right? Some of the things that shield it, and it's going to make it much more susceptible to pests and disease. So it makes it easier for them to come and take over if it doesn't have sufficient water.
Right. They identify a weakling, and they come in and take advantage of that weak.
But do the pests now spread to your other crop and stuff? Because like I have a dead pine because of the drought last year.
Right.
So like one of my pine trees in the backyard died.
Yeah.
So he's saying that because it's dying, it's going to, more pests are going to come to feed on that?
It depends on the different kind of pests, plant species specific. Now you have one type of pest that attacks pine trees. Now as far as your crops, you're going to have a different type of pest that invade and infect those other type crops.
But are the pine pests going to say, hey pests, like, come on over here? So it's going to
go to other pine trees.
Oh, it's just pine?
Yeah, pine trees, yes ma'am.
And it may or may not, depending on how healthy the other pines are.
Yeah, if they're healthy, then they'll move to the weakest specimen. But that's one thing about knowing we have a class pest management. Pests, they are kind of selective. They just go to that particular plant and they infect that. And some pests are just they'll go to wherever they can find food at. But for the most part, a lot of pests are specific on which they attack, type species they attack.
And we can talk about that a little more later too, but it's like when you look through the encyclopedia and you see all these insects and you see everything, there's so many of them. There's a balance out there. All these things exist, and there's a balance. Oh, we have lizards, we have this, we have that. We have ladybugs. Ladybugs are actually an insect that prey on a lot of pests that eat our crops. So there's a balance out there, and when we're not disrupting those things kind of take care of each other. And this is something they've worked on over millions and millions of years, so they kind of keep each other in check that way. But sometimes we accidentally, or sometimes intentionally, come in and, especially when we're in a monocropping environment, eradicate the host for some of those, what we call beneficial insects. And then they don't have a home. Some of them can live in the cover crops as well. That's another reason to have cover, is because they can stay there over winter and have something to feed on, and then they can move, the beneficial insects can move to the good crops when the crops come up, and then they can attack the pests. So we are really talking about keeping these things in check, and there are, for every bad pest out there, there's a beneficial insect to combat it. If we put the plantings right and we attract we put things out there that will attract them to be there and accommodate their homes.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. And what we say pest management, that's key. Management. We didn't say pest eradication or elimination because if you eradicate something, it may have a beneficial side. It may, like Dave was saying, it may be the predator of another harmful pest. So if you remove it out of the system, then you got a problem with the pest that it was controlling. So if we say pest management, we don't use that word eradication any longer. It's management.
We have a question coming in from online that was asking about if we can recommend any good soil testers, because sometimes local office could get backed up, and this is something important to think about.
Absolutely. The only one that I've had personal use with that I could say gave us a really easy to read report we specified that we were trying to grow cabbage, so they adjusted their report based off of what we told them we were trying to do was Waters Agricultural Laboratories in Vicksburg. Like I say, usually I go through Mississippi State Extension, but as they asked online or as they stated, sometimes Extension gets backed up. But I can vouch personally for the Waters Agricultural Laboratories in Vicksburg. They do a pretty good job, pretty fast response time, and it's easily digestible information, especially with so many of us being beginning farmers or trying to hone in on managing our soils for the first time. And while we're on that topic of soil tests, just to make sure we had a clear answer for, I think it was your question in the back, when to test. Since so many of you all are beginners and just starting, I would recommend how I did when I was doing my research. We got our initial soil test before we started planting anything. That was to give us our backbone to see what we needed to add before we could really get into proper production. So I would recommend doing one test before you begin, or if you've already started, just at the conclusion of that growing season. Then, as Delaney stated, with our growing seasons, you'll have that time from, say, October to February to make your necessary adjustments. And I would just test from that point forward after every growing season to see if maybe you're adding too much, adding too little, or to overall get a numeric gauge for your production as you go forward.
Right.
And there are other things that you can test for.
Absolutely.
So when you're sending off for a soil test, you may just get a basic test, but there are things that you can ask for specifically, and it may take a little longer, or it may cost a little more sometimes, or you may have to search around a little bit. There are a lot of soil test companies online. I'm sorry, they're not online. There are a lot of labs that you can send things to that will give you an online report that can test more things than is sometimes available locally. So that's something to look for. And in addition to that, it's not necessarily something you have to start off doing, but crop tissue sampling and testing is a good idea too, especially when you're seeing something happen that does not look right. You want to send the soil sample, a tissue sample off, because that can give you a good indication of what kind of disease it might be there, or any other kind of infestation.
What other things you could test for in your soil in addition? What do you mean by that? You test for other things. What's an example of other things?
You could test for other macro or micronutrients. Normally you might just get NPK, but you can ask for other evidence of macro or micronutrients that for some reason your soil may be lacking in some area, which could be critical if there's a particular crop that you want to grow that really needs that element to survive or to really produce.
This water agriculture laboratory, how do you just send it there, or how do you get it to them?
Unless their process has changed, they had a form that we would fill out, as well as a soil testing box, same as from, let's say, Mississippi State Extension. You would fill out that form, which would basically let them know, your information so they could contact you, as well as what you're getting the test done for. And some people, you may not know exactly which vegetable you want, but they have slots for cold vegetables such as, you know, your lettuces, cabbages, etc., or garden veggies for more of a general test. So it was a really simple form you filled out, then you send them the sample, and they send you the results back to usually the email or mailing address that you put on your form.
There's not a test you can do yourself without having to go through that?
I was just about to mention that because I read here our online question meant specifically tools. So there are meters, etc., you could buy that would test your soil, and you would, from my experience, you would get a pretty accurate rating as far as your nutrients. It would just be a bit harder to digest if you don't know exactly what the numbers themselves mean. I think the real value comes from, I think a soil test is about $12 for the base test, give or take. You know, like as he said, you can add extra nutrients for a fee. I think we used to pay on average about $20 per sample, but that one sample can cover a large area, or you can get smaller samples to break up. So you got $20 for a pretty digestible, easy to read report that can take time depending on their load, or the probe that I looked up that you could buy is $425, but you have to know what all the numbers mean immediately.
Right.
We did a soil test sample in a video, I guess about 6 months ago, and we'll end up posting that one soon as well, so that you can see how to do it. There's nothing. In fact, it's great to do to go through. So you're actually, oh, okay, this is what's happening. We're collecting this sample, but then are you collecting a sample from here and here and here from different areas of your farm, or kind of mixing them together? You know, or are you doing those separately? You know, it kind of depends on what you want to grow. But you can do it yourself, but you might get more accurate readings by sending it in.
So that meter that you could buy for yourself, it doesn't come with what each number means?
It'll give you the range pretty much of the amount of your NPK. So it'll give you the solid number. It's just the interpretation from the number wouldn't be there. It'll just, you know, give you the raw statistics.
Okay.
And they may have advanced more. It's just that's the only one I personally worked with.
Right. Well, yeah, you would know more than me. You in the field every day.
Listen.
So a question. So we had our soil tested.
Yes, ma'am.
When we first moved out here in the extension.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't understand why they told us to put a soil, like 5 or 6 samples in the same bag. Because then how do you know?
What you're doing is you are trying to get a good representation of if it's an acre, and you're going to plant the whole acre in, say, greens or peas. You want to get a good representation of that whole area. So you would do a grid, and you probably collect 6 to 8 samples and mix that in a 5-gallon bucket. Real good, and then put that, collect some out of that and put it in a quart bag, and then it's a good representation of that whole area. Instead of just getting one spot and then backing it up, you're getting a good representation of that whole acre. Right.
Of course, the larger an area you're using, the more likely that there's variability.
Okay.
You know, so if you're doing 10 acres, then you probably want to do different samples, like for each acre.
And that's how I thought it would make sense to me. Like, I'm gonna I'm gonna plant here. Why do you need the samples? But
everywhere.
I understand.
It was probably, like he said, just a general composite test for what you're looking to do, where you're going to use one specific area. I would probably go back through and get a sample of that area, just so you know what you're planting into. But like you say, that first sample is probably just a general sample of the whole area.
Yeah, well, we found out that they did it.
Yeah.
We thought, oh, cool.
It was like, all right, we got a sample.
It was like a 2 or 3 week turnaround. It wasn't too bad.
That's about normal.
Makes sense as well, because the area in your mind you want to plant at might not be as good as the area,
Right.
That's
Very possible.
over or whatever.
Right.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And if you got also if you just know your landscape, if you have your area is kind of has 2 different soils, 2 contrasting soils, and you want to try to look at that surface And if you have a different soil over here and what's on here, you want to try to do your sampling over here and describe that on your form. That this is was taken from the soil that was clay, and then this soil, if you don't know the name of the soil, and take one in the other type soil in that area. Right. So it's based upon making sure you got a good representation of that particular soil type, surface, and the type of crop you want to use it for. And you should also look at right below the surface, right below that 8 layer, what we were talking about, that probably 4 inches from on down below that. And that's where you should collect your material. And that probably below that brown, that dark color, organic, that 8 layer. Below that to 4 inches or 6 inches, somewhere in that zone, that's where you collect your material, and then you mix that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But y'all got for the question, then we could help, make sure you get it done the right way, because getting it the right way the first time, that's key. If you get it wrong the first time, wrong, then you're gonna get started down the road.
Mm-hmm. But over time though, I mean, you one of the reasons why you may not have to soil test as often is the assumption that you're actually paying attention to what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You're observing. You are, and we talk about this all the time. You have to be your own scientist, and mm-hmm. sometimes you have to be a mad scientist. You're half scientist and half artist out there, but a lot of it really is observing and documentation. And what did I do? What did I do? Let me write this down, and let me compare it to what I did last year. What am I seeing? What did I do different now? And you start making those adjustments.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. And we see what we say the roots are always trying to do. Their desire is to go downward, go vertical, and we see the topsoil, the subsoil, and we see where it's trying to tap into what we say a tap root. It's trying to tap into something. It's trying to find something, and in this case, the roots are trying to find that water source, that water supply, where that layer is, that zone is that's going to provide them the maximum water. Now you see the tap root, but then you see other roots, smaller roots, and what are they doing? They are trying to gather nutrients. They probably might stop shallower than the tap root. So they are trying to gather nutrients. So a plant is smart. A plant knows what it's doing and it had the right environment to work under. So we see that those root distribution is going downward, and it's trying to tap into a water supply. And the water supply is up there in that subsoil, that top subsoil. Then that's pretty much where it's going to be, but that taproot is going to still, by nature, it's going to still go down. The root is generally the downward, if the conditions are right, it's just as tall as that stalk. What's above ground it should be almost equal to what's below ground, if conditions are right. Infiltration, downward entry of movement of water.
How would that be? This might be a little off topic or whatnot, but like they said, for hydroponics, it's a bigger plant, smaller root area because everything is already there for it, right?
For it, right. Mm-hmm. Right.
So in soil, it would be reversed, right? A bigger root system and not as big as a plant. Right.
Now, in hydroponics, it kind of spoils a plant. Mm-hmm. While nature, roots like to tap into, relate and habitate with the soil medium. Right. Okay, but if you got all the nutrients right there in that solution, then they don't have nowhere to, they don't have to look for no food. It just grow. So it's a system that's tried and it's proven where you had the concentration of nutrients and availability, it don't have to look any further. It's right there. So
I always found that fascinating.
You can kill your whole crop as well, right?
If it's not in the right concentration, it'll kill your whole. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So soil is like a buffer for that.
Yes, sir. Soil is a buffer. Soil is the natural medium.
There was something you had said before about the roots kind of acting like a divining rod, so that when you're going in and you're laying in some fertilizer and you're kind of putting it on the side, like 6 inches out on the side, the roots will come down and they'll find it.
Right.
They'll move over. They'll sense that food, and they are searching for it.
They're searching, yeah.
You know, they're not just going like, I'm going down because I'm going down. No, we're going down because we're looking. We're looking. We're moving where it is.
Right, you're looking for something, right. Mm-hmm. But if you have nowhere to look, you got it right there, you know. You make it lazy, you know. You can't have to hunt.
I was just, you know, when you're researching and you look at pictures of hydroponic plants, just a smaller root system, but the plants are ginormous.
Yeah, it didn't have to, yeah, right.
It makes sense, you know, they can focus their energy on
growth. Yeah, foliage, yeah, that's right.
I know when you have a tree, and it said the way you fertilize your trees based on the branches.
Yes,
Where
ma'am.
you're supposed to go where
It's been the canopy, and like I say, zinc, like in pecan trees, that's an essential minor nutrient, but essential for good pecan production. And you put that nutrient out there with the perimeter of that canopy. Right. You don't go there right next to the trunk and then put it around. You put it out there along that perimeter.
They go down, but they spread out.
Spread out, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Right. That's right. And it'll identify and go where it is. If you put it too close on the root, it'll toxic. It'll make it toxic. So let it go at its own pace and get to where those nutrients are out there in the ground.
So it'd be the same for watering it as well, just water as wide as the tree is, or?
Yes, ma'am, you can order as wide as the tree is because it's that's where your roots that are taken up. That's where those root ends are that's taken up moisture. Okay. Percolation and water flow or movement through the soil medium. Now, what's the difference in percolation and infiltration?
Infiltration just
Going straight down. It's going throughout, right. Percolation is going throughout that medium, that layer. So infiltration is going straight down. That's correct.
That's the difference right there.
Oh, yeah. Yes, that's the difference right there. Okay, infiltration. If infiltration rate is slower than the rainfall, then you're going to have erosion. Okay, but at the same time, you're going to have that infiltration. It's going to, what the root is not taken up, it's going to, what's called evapotranspiration and evaporation. Evapotranspiration is going back out through the root. You see that blue arrow to the left there. Well, evaporation is going from the ground up back into the atmosphere.
Can we stop on that first part again that you said, just to make sure everybody gets that? If infiltration is less than transpiration, then you're going to have erosion. So you said yes.
If infiltration is
less than rain.
Less than rain. Less than precipitation.
Less than precipitation. Does everybody get that?
Yeah.
It's not going down. You just got a lot more rain than is able to get absorbed by the soil.
Different soils have different infiltration rates, the different speeds at which they pull water in.
Yeah. But if the downward movement is less than what's being taken up, then you're going to have erosion. You're going to have runoff, and then you're going to have runoff. Runoff in the conservation world, that's a bad thing because runoff. What does that mean? Washing away your material. Erosion. It's going to take something with it. It's not just going to run off by itself. It's going to take something with it. But in this case, it's your soil material. It's going to take your soil. And that's a bad thing when that occurs. That's why we say good permanent cover. So. Okay. Clays and 3/8 valve. That's what Dex was saying. Based on your texture or fraction, you're going to have that type of infiltration. and these are your microbes I was talking about, down in your soil medium. Now that, for every one you see, I guess the ones that have little fingerlings out from them and stuff, those are the micro. Okay, for every one you see, that's probably 1 million to that each one of those critters right there. That's in a square inch of soil, in a square inch. I ain't talking about this room size, I'm talking a square inch. You probably got 1 million of those little yellow and green bugs going around in that soil medium that you can't see, for every one of them. Now you see the worms, the earthworms, and you can see those are macro, what's called macroorganisms. But they are just as important, because what do they do? Like I said, what do they do? They move, material moves through that body, and their excrement, it goes back into the soil, and then that makes good organic material or organic substance. But that's below ground now. You see all this down below ground now. So. And they have wars, they have fight. If you looking on a video, they be going at it, boy. They be fighting each other and going at it and stuff. But it's just there's a war that's taking place and stuff. But it's all for the good. It's soil health moment. Keep your soil, what we say, covered. You always cover to maintain that good regulated temperature, because if it get too hot, then you're going to have a ceasing of activity. Yep. Having diversity of plants. The more diversity of plants, the more what? Different type of diversity you're going to have underground as far as your organisms. Because like I say, you know, some organisms are specific to certain plants, and you're going to have, the most diversity you have above ground, the more diversity you're going to have below ground. And the more diversity you have, what? The better, healthier cropping system, plant you're going to have, plants you're going to have, because you got the diversity above ground, and you're going to have it below ground.
So these fields that we see when we're driving that's naked, that's not good?
No, it's not good.
No, sir.
Okay. Why everybody doing it so wrong then?
It's cheap.
It's cheap.
Well, it's still done conventional.
And it's commercial scale. So.
Right. That makes sense.
And they not practicing good, still on the conventional equipment, heavy tillage. You want to expand on that? It's Liddell. Conventional tillage versus converting the soil health and
with the conventional tillage, you know, I don't know if you use it, but it really all depends on what you plan on doing. Mm-hmm. That's how you can determine what tillage you want to use, you know, which one you want to do, what cover crops you're going to use, you know, all that play a part, you know. Mm-hmm.
No, these fields don't use no cover crops at all.
They
harvest,
This is
the rest of the year.
What was it? Do you remember the number he said? How many years it takes?
Like 500 to 1,000.
Yeah, in 5 minutes to mess it up. You know, but it takes that long to generate that really good topsoil and to get there. You know, so we're disrupting that environment by doing the same thing. And what ends up happening, we were talking about earlier, a balance. You know, it's the balance of all the different plants invites a balance of different insects and other kinds of animals that also help as natural repellents for disease and pests. And they keep that culture of microactivity strong. Then when you lose that diversity, you lose the entire ecosystem. You know, where your pollinator is going to go, where your beneficial is going to go, where these other things going to go. So you end up having to use more and more artificial suppressants. You know, more pesticides. You know, you're going to have more frequent disease. You know, and eventually you're just going to destroy the soil.
So that soil is just continuously getting worse year after year. And that's why they're having to go with more extreme fertilizers and so on and so forth to produce their crop.
They have to invest in more fertilizer, more commercial. Exactly right. And we are trying to show our farmers a better way to do things instead of just continues to rely on commercial, because like I say, you have removed the natural soil improvement or soil restoration. So you got to replace it with artificial amendments and artificial everything, and that gets expensive. And now these bigger operations, like 500,000 acre operations, that's part of their, the way they operate. But then you trying to be a beginning farmer and producer, and you can't, invest in that type of expenses and stuff. So you're going to try to take advantage of what nature is trying to do for you on its own. And that's what we're trying to inform our graduate, educate small limited resource, limited acreage producers. This is the way to start, and once you start it, then that'll become your standard. You got to use that measuring stick what the 1,000 acre operators do. You can't go and use something you don't have. Okay, I only have 10 acres, only have 20 acres. Okay, so let's see what I can do to maximize my efficiency with this acreage. Less keeping going into my pocket, investing in something that you might not be able to cover the expenses. So you want to use what's already provided to you naturally, and then work from that standpoint and stuff. And that's what soil health is all about. Trying to inform, educate producers on utilizing what you do have out there on your ground and maximizing it from that standpoint.
Crop rotation might help.
Right. It seems like as they grow and expand their acreage, you would continue to do it that way, because then you wouldn't have to spend as much money like you would now to start it over, like you touched on earlier.
Right. Yeah.
And it wants people to get away from you. I can see why it's just.
Yeah, so there are different kinds of things that are being grown too, and some things are being grown because they can be processed, highly processed, and there's less perishability for those things. And because there's less perishability, there's less demands for labor, there's less food safety concerns as well. So there are a lot of things within that, but you can also look at it like, I don't know, maybe the most important variable in farming is time. Time. And some people don't want to spend time. They want to suspend time.
Earlier, the microwave, right?
That's right. They want to microwave. They want to microwave that. They want to suspend time, and they want to just say, okay, time doesn't exist. We're going to do the same thing forever and ever and ever. But that is not the way nature works. And even if you can succeed in that, in human terms, for a while, hey, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, the universe is just like, whatever. That's nothing, So it does, for those of us who care about, the world around us and in future generations, I think putting that time into it, paying attention to things, and in looking at natural ways because nature presents answers there for handling pests and for handling disease, but it does take an investment of time to go into it, and it takes time to see the results.
Yeah. And it's not like poor farming precedents causing problems has no precedent. I believe that's why NRCS exists to begin with, is because the Dust Bowl was a direct result of very, very poor farming practices over a large scale. It displaced a lot of people. It caused a national crisis, a massive food shortage. So it's not like these are, they're not going to happen. No, they've happened. They've happened and caused serious, serious problems. That's why NRCS exists today.
And I was going to say too, to help with your soil and as far as getting out of certain pests and everything, certain microorganisms, as I had just said, crop rotation will help out a lot with that as well. Just rotating your crops, because certain microorganisms, they feed off certain crops that you plant. So if you rotate those crops, okay, you did on this section, let's say you did it on these 5 acres, and next time you do it on these 5 acres. So now those organisms that feed off it, they'll either leave or die off or whatever, and then, you put in another crop there. And it'll help with the pest, and depending on what it is, it could also help with your soil. Certain things going on with the soil, so it can help with that as well.
Do you rotate your crops in your garden?
I don't know.
What's that?
So first year.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's interesting because, like, we have so much stuff growing everywhere that we didn't plant. It's just naturally coming up.
Right.
You know, and
Yeah.
I've always thought that was a good thing because it means that your soil is alive, you know, and it should be good to use. I mean, we have so much stuff just growing. I can't even identify, 5% of the stuff we have growing.
A lot of different weeds.
We got weeds. Well, I don't want to consider them weeds because some of them are medicinal and, you know,
Right.
some of them are edible.
But it's at the end of the day, it could still be a weed. Not always.
Okay.
Not always.
He's weed neutral. Yes. Yeah, we have an interview online with Justin Duncan. Have any of you seen that yet? It's on farmscaping, and he really talks at length about that, about his way of farming. He's in Texas, and his way of farming is that he goes out and he looks for what grows naturally out there, and then he thinks of things. He finds things that are in similar families. And he says, well, okay, the land will grow that because nature's telling me it'll grow that, so I'll grow this because it's similar. Although it may be something that's quite edible, you know, but the weeds can tell you what else can be grown.
Okay. I guess I'm a little confused now because I've done raised bed gardens, and now I feel like maybe that's a bad thing.
No, it's
No,
really not at all. Based on I look at your own makeup, your own ability, physical ability, limitations, and center your operation around, because you want to be able to sustain and survive on some years on past this. You don't want to burn yourself out, then you miss the mark altogether. So you want to do something that's central to your ability in our area and what's conducive to the crops or what you like eating. All that comes into play. You know,
Listen to the land.
Yeah.
The land will tell you. Listen to it.
So all these things still apply. You're going to be trying to create the same environment within raised beds, as we're talking about in the standard soil.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, if your soil is a good soil, but you put a raised bed on it, does that make it not so good a soil afterwards? Say you remove that raised bed, or does it just continue to?
You have to tend to it and make sure you do the same thing. But oftentimes it's for convenience. You know, it's for being like scooping over down. You don't have to just kind of bend over and tend to it.
Right.
So it's a more or less the operation of convenience type of setup or way of operating also. Okay. You know, but raised beds, if I had my druthers, I would like to say the natural ground, but that's not, you know. But you do have other amendments that, like say, raised beds and different types of farming. So what fits your ability and your area of operation and convenience, you know. Yeah. Yeah. Raised beds are not bad. It's not a bad thing.
We're trying to use everything that we have, you know, I put organic material, you know, cuts from the trees and the leaves and everything.
So are you an organic farmer?
Yeah, I guess. I'm not using any chemicals, I'll say that much.
Okay, are you
composting? I'm putting all the organic matter that we.
Are you kind of like off to yourself, or is it kind of some farms nearby?
No, I'm by myself.
You could be considered an organic farmer then, you know, because it's just basically if you're not close enough for someone else's farm, if it's being sprayed, for it to come over and spray yours as well. So if you're not using chemicals,
around me they have very beautiful manicured lawns.
Okay.
It wasn't like what I'm doing in my little section, but yeah.
Well, come on to NRCS. We got some organic farming stuff. program.
Yeah, and you can still rotate crops even with raised beds. And, you know, it's still a really wise idea to do that.
Okay.
So on these farms that are natural, organic, and you have crops and animals, with crop rotation, can you rotate the animals as well so that they're naturally fertilizing and you just kind of rotate it as time goes on? Or?
Let's say your livestock is cows. Me, personally, and probably a lot of other farmers wouldn't put the cows with whatever you're growing, you know, you probably don't want to do that.
Look at seasonal, like when you're doing your crop rotation.
Okay, so
Soil.
Post-production period.
when it comes to my crops, and I'm rotating them, I probably still wouldn't have put it. I would keep a section of my land just for my animals, and I would cross fence that so you can call grazing rotation. Grazing rotation, you know. So basically, your cows eat here, and then you move them over here, you know, because you're not supposed to let your grass get 3 inches, 3 inches. So, you know, I kind of would just leave that for the cows and have my crops for my crops, you know. And as far as rotating it, when I'm going from one season to the next, I would just plant a cover crop and do it like that. That's how I would do it, you know, and probably a lot of other farmers.
I'm just thinking out the box. I'm just.
Oh no, this is great.
It was like,
You're right though. There are two different rotational systems. One is rotational grazing, another is crop rotations.
Okay.
All right, so they're two separate kind of thoughts. If you bring them together, what's going to happen is your animals are going to eat all your crops.
Right.
So you're just feeding your animals, you know.
So I guess I'm not trying to intermingle them with my crops like for that season.
You saying as far as the manure?
Their manure for
Right.
They're interconnected.
You've harvested a crop, there's nothing left in the field for the cows to eat, so can you put the cows into the field?
Yes, you can.
chickens or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. I know.
And the chickens, I would definitely use the chicken litter. You know, it would definitely help. Yeah.
I'm just trying to see what.
There are also food safety concerns. You know, there are serious food safety concerns, and so the timing of it does matter as well.
It matters. You're right. You got to let it die off and decompose.
And then when it comes to something as heavy as a cow, you put it in your crop beds, you know, them things heavy and they move around. So you had the next season, now you gotta go out here and fix your land back up because they're gonna mess it up.
You could end up with compaction issues,
Right?
You know,
bad compaction.
in your growing area, which is probably something you don't want. So they're really two separate kind of things.
Right.
But you know, inputs from one outputs from one can be inputs for another.
I guess because they're in the compost pile.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you want to do. Right. Yeah.
And throw it in the compost.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah, that's it.
One farm me and Delaney visited just a week ago, they did that. They use their tractor, they collect all their cattle manure, and they do exactly that. They have a massive compost pile that they feed the crops with.
Yeah, okay. That seems, yeah. Okay.
It stink.
Yeah, for what
Oh
yeah, but where do you want to go and keep apples and oranges and oranges? You probably keep your live animals separate from that same ground that you're doing your crops on. And but you
Compost, like you said.
There you go. That's the way to do it.
Because that's all I'm just would use it for, you know, keep the natural cycle going. So,
Right.
yeah, they don't need to.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
No, these are the kinds of conversations that we're here for, that we really want to, you know, discuss.
Especially like with someone like you thinking of buying a farm, there's definitely things that you want to know, you know, because you'll be putting your cows out there and they'll be eating up everything you plant, and then you'll be ready to take them out.
It's a thing, because immediately there's an investment involved there, and that investment is called fencing.
Exactly.
You know, so that is the thing that you have, and it's part of the livestock. But if you're wanting to grow specialty crops over here too, you're going to have to make sure that there's separation from them.
Yeah. Okay, good discussion. Next thing is maintain active biology. And to maintain active biology, what did we say back early on? You want to have year-round type of cover, some type of live roots in the ground all the time. I didn't say, you know, just like the cool season, disc it up and leave it fallow till next growing. But have like cover crops, clover, rye, oats, wheat, anything that keeps live roots in the ground. See where they are around that, concentrate around those root beds, root mats and stuff. What wasn't in the roots there? What would they do when they turn on each other, you know? It gives them a reason to stay, kind of focus on something else, you know? So, yeah, but that's another reason, and it's generating nutrients also. They're active, and those they're active, they are, like I say, I guess, using carbon, and they are kind of excrementing, and that keeps the ground active and keep it nutrient.
We did have a comment just to follow up on that. Ina Goods was talking about with your raised beds that you can make sure that you're using half in ground soil and half in the added extra soil. So it can be part way. It doesn't have to be all above ground, you know, in order to make that work.
Yeah, yeah, you're gonna have some, right. Okay. Smart fertilizing. I mean, you don't just go out and fertilize. If fertilizing for the intended purpose, like you were saying, pecan orchard, you want to use a specific fertilizer nutrient for that need to have a healthy, I guess, Jubilee crop of pecans. Okay, examples, you're looking at a field that has some stubble on it. And what do? They didn't go in and disc it all under, they left some stubble on the top. So what does that do? That intercepts raindrops, so that helps prevent detachment and erosion. Also that helps, keeps the ground moist. You got stubble stomps in the ground, you got the decomposition process, you got good infiltration, because a lot of water goes down through those root systems and stuff when they intercept in the ground. So if you have a good stubble root mat there, you got good infiltration because you got a pathway for the water to get down into the ground. Okay, in the garden, soil making difficult plant access to water. This is due to weak capillary action and large pores of sandy soil. Okay. We look at that cloud again. And what do we say? Garden bed, we were talking about composting, Peyton, and you see where those leaves, you rake those leaves up and you take them and then you moisten them, become waterlogged, and what they do is a good mix of pores, both drainage and capillary action, because you put the leaves in, mixing in with the soil ground and stuff, then you got a decomposition process, you got a good opportunity for good aeration and pore space, because you're going to have that, and it's natural. Leaves are naturally decomposing as part of the plant, and you have a good opportunity for a good soil medium with that. You got onion buds.
So you can mix, when you're mixing that, you can mix like the chicken poop and stuff with it as well?
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Chicken poo is different from compost, not chicken poo. That's like
when you mix it with like I'm doing the vegetable, you know, as I pull on the leaves of the cabbage and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I would put a lot of people put that chicken litter down, applied it by itself on the ground. You don't want to mix it with the compost, because you have enough bugs in there, you know, composting system without the chicken litter.
Okay.
Yeah. Chicken litter is highly nutrient, and it's also a real high concentration of nitrogen, and you have some phosphorus in chicken litter and stuff. So you want to take advantage of that. You don't want to mix it and dilute it. You want to put it down as is on your ground. Let it stand alone. This is soil sampling testing. We see the soil boxes, and we see the sampling, then the analysis, then the recommendations. And these are, for example, some boxes from Mississippi State that you would get a quart bag, and you would, like I say, get a collection of your a representation of that field, of that area you want to plant, and mix it all together, and then fill that quart bag and put it in those boxes. And really, you can take it back by the extension office, I think, Lee, and then they'll help send it to Mississippi State.
Yes, sir.
They'll take it back by your local extension office. You find out where that is. What county you in? Pearl. Okay, that's Rankin County.
Say Pearl County? Pearl?
Pearl, that's Rankin County.
We went to the soil, I don't know what's allowed, but we don't know.
But it's an extension office there in Rankin County.
Okay.
You take it there, and they'll help with you, provide you the boxes, provide you the forms, and they'll help with the boxing and everything else. That's what they're there for. And we can get you that number, and Lee can get you that number if you need it, and that's what they're there for. To help with that step.
You can drive it up there and
Right.
drop it off. If you want to take a drive.
But when we do acquire property, we don't.
Yeah, that's
But
where
I guess look for the local.
yeah, that's where you go, right?
So I'm gonna just so you know, I'm gonna be repeating some of the things you say, so that people online can hear everything. Just let y'all know. So if it sounds like I'm repeating everything you say, it's because it's true.
So you're going to repeat everything we say?
I'm gonna repeat everything you're gonna say. Yes,
At least
yes.
the question part.
At least the questions. Right.
I'm not going to answer it for you. That's the question. Economic benefits: cost saving, improves crop yields, long-term soil health. Okay, if you do these practices and soil testing, also significant benefits. And like I say, why do we say cost saving? Because it allows you not to put down stuff that you don't need to apply. You know, well, I'm putting down triple 13. Well, you might not need the potassium part. It might not be need the phosphorus. Might be already adequate, and your crop might not call for that. So with soil tests, it will tell you just what you need and stuff. So, and a lot of people have just spent money over the years that's stuff that they didn't need. And then they wonder why, you get in a bind because, you're doing stuff that you really wasn't called for, Okay. Environmental benefits: reduce nutrient runoff because you're not oversupplying, applying nutrients on the ground, because if the plant is not taking it up and then it's just being left there in the ground, then it's going somewhere. Okay, so it's runoff getting into your water supply, and then it's running off getting into your streams, and then it's causing problems, causing impaired streams and water bodies. Then your fish die, and then you can't go fishing because you got. So it's a trickle effect. It's a domino effect. It's just one thing, and we see where it all started at because you put down too much fertilizer that you didn't need. So it just like we see how things work for the detriment of a whole system, a whole neighborhood. Just by us doing something that wasn't necessary.
And that, by the way, is just another reason. So if you got the animals over there, that can create compaction, which is going to lead to the runoff, but it's also going to take all of those nutrients with it. So it's not just going to take your topsoil; it's going to take everything else with it too.
Yeah.
Just throw it in the compost.
Yep.
Everything is connected, and so you just got to know the dynamics and be responsible in knowing what you're doing to save money and also protect your system. Because the main thing, you want to have a healthy growing medium in order to have year-to-year sustainable program, sustainable agriculture. I think. Nutrient management guidelines, and you have this information that's Mississippi State EDU provides, and that's our land grant institution here in Mississippi, and we also have another land grant institution in Alcorn State, which is a land grant institution also. So, but as far as the publications of information, Mississippi State is the one that is real active in providing farmers and producers the information they need to help. With bulletins, with guidelines and annual cropping systems and stuff. Okay, interpreting test, and that's the print out there and telling you what you need and how to interpret it. It also has a little description on the bottom of the sheet, right, Lee, on the back side. It describes how you read that stuff. Customer fertilizer lime requirement, and take out the guesswork. You know, an optimum fertilizer lime is more economically efficient. Not just liming to be liming, and it tells you in what quantity. Recommended prevention over application of fertilizer, which is also detrimental to the environment. Put too much on, it's worse than not putting enough. But you causing a toxicity condition.
And don't lime the day before you go out there. Just no, please.
Right. They wonder what happened. Yeah, but it's in order for a healthy crop. So, man,
So when you lime, what you say about liming now? When do you lime then, if you need it?
Right there, after you take off your last crop during the spring, summer season, probably October, you want to apply your lime, and then that'll give it time to work in and time for it to, when I say work in, time for the microbes to do what they do, and by late February or March, and then it should be ready and it should be available. Whatever nutrients that are needed, it should be available to the plants because your pH has become regulated where it needs to be by that time. So all your nutrients should be adequate and available then at that time. That's what you're trying to shoot for, nutrient availability. That's what pH is. It's trying to make sure the soil medium and the hydrogen ions, like you say, are kept in check so your nutrients can be available for your cash crop season. What we call cash crops, that's the spring crop that you normally gonna grow and stuff.
So your cover crops will be able to still do what they need to do.
Right.
With the fresh lime treatment.
If that's
cover
fine.
season.
Right.
And then it'll be all ready to go for your.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. But the cover crops are more or less going to provide nitrogen to you,
right,
to your soil medium, and then but your other nutrient availability is going to be based on your pH and lime requirement.
So 3 to 6 months probably. It's a good timeline, generally. Yeah.
Okay. This is soil medium. You see some earthworms in there, and people always say when you see an earthworm, they ain't there just because they like it. Somebody's there for a reason. It's some good eating there. So. Yeah, it sure is. Just hang around. Supporting practices: integrated pest management, manure utilization management, conservation buffer filter strips. What we call supporting practices, these are the primary practices. The primary practice is nutrient management, and then you're going to have the other supporting each other. Integrated pest management, because if you have in conservation buffer strips, helping with water management. So all these are supportive of each other. Yeah. Nutrient management definition, managing the rate of source placement and timing of plant nutrients and amendments while reducing environmental impacts and improving plant health and productivity. When you're a good farmer, a good steward, you're not just looking at how much I'm going to produce, what my production a year is going to be. You're looking at how you're protecting your ground too. You're looking at how you are conserving and managing, looking at how you prevent erosion, looking at how you are making the soil improving the soil condition and nutrient quality, reducing compaction, having good pore space, having good aggregate stability. You're looking at all those different factors when you talk about nutrient management and being a good soil, a good farmer, a good producer. It's not just no one thing, you plant the seed and then going out there, 70 days later and then going to harvest it. It's a lot from that planting that seed to the harvest that goes on between that time and stuff. You have to be cognizant of that if you want to be sustainable. You might get past that first year, but you're looking at this year already gone. So you're looking at projected years on down the road. Because you can't just go by 1 year to the next. Even when it's soil health improvement, soil nutrient management and improvement, you're looking at 3 to 5 years. You're not looking at, I started soil health practice in 2024. I'm going to increase my organic carbon by 2% the next year. It don't work that way. It's over time. You have to manage it and then gradually improve your soil fertility in order to get it increased. And that's get through good organic matter, good residue management, all those different factors. And then you're going to see an improvement, and you're going to see an increase in your productivity. You're going to see a reduction in your pest population, and you're going to see a good improvement in your root distribution and yield, and your water quantity and stuff. So that's what we're trying to aim toward, is good continuous soil health management over an amount of years, and then you're going to be able to see some benefits. You're going to see the benefits, but it just takes time. And that's what we want to emphasize. Nutrient management purpose to accomplish more than the following: improve plant health, productivity, reduces excess nutrients in soil, in surface and groundwater, reduces emissions of objectable odors, reduces emissions of organic matter and plant material, reduces emissions of greenhouse gases. It's going to help reduce the emission of greenhouse gases. Why? You're going to have that organism, you're going to have a good soil health microorganism community, and they're going to retention, they're going to sequester that carbon and the gases, and then therefore it's less going back into the atmosphere because it's being utilized. They're using it in the ground. So therefore, then when we're using the ground, what we say it goes to, it converts nutrients into plant growth and development. So it's all being consumed, it's all being utilized. Whereas if we were not practicing good soil health management practices, then all that would be going back in the atmosphere. And we talk about reducing the footprint of soil carbon, greenhouse gas emissions. And this is what we are trying to get to, is a climate smart type of farming that we are hoping to introduce and help beginning farmers, help develop this generation coming along of beginning farmers operations, and hopefully in some point soon that we will be caught on enough that we can see a change in our global warming footprint, Dave, that we can really realize that it might just be a percentage, but at the same time it'll start, So that's what we have been commissioned here to do with Up in Farms, is try to make sure we educate and try to provide that understanding to the beginning producers that are involved in starting a farm operation and have resources that they want to expend and learn how to be a smarter farmer. We say climate smart. Climate smart is smart farming, smart soil health practices. Smart is because smart thing is you take advantage of things that's already there. Taking advantage of all the natural resources that are already available there, and being able to compound improve upon those, and not going out to the store buying everything you need and come back and that stuff. It lasts for a year. What you have to do with soil amendments, commercial amendments, you have to apply it every year, right? It don't renew itself from year to year. You got to apply commercial amendments every year. So we're looking at something that's sustainable, something that you get the ground to start working for you, then it's going to continue to deliver and produce good quality health produce for you. And we're looking at things that are already there that we're going to take advantage of. Nutrient management practice and stuff. Okay, lagoons. Topsoil, we talk about topsoil. What did Lee say? Soil erosion can be prevented by intensive cropping, sowing grasses and planting leader like terracing farming, contour bonding. But what we want to look at there is preventing soil erosion. That's the whole, like Dex was saying, that's the whole reason the Natural Resources Conservation Service came into being, is preventing soil from erosion. And then that consists of really back then wind erosion, because you had the Dust Bowl, that thing. But then you also had just the significance of us water erosion. And here in the Southeast, that's what our most critical enemy is, water erosion. And we see so much of that going on and stuff. And it's not only agriculture, but it's all commercial everywhere, you know. People just, you know, develop and whatnot, and then don't even consider the erosion part, you know. That whoever buys it, that's their problem, you know. But you don't want to get caught like that, you know. You want to know how to do it. Good soil cover and good soil management to prevent that from happening in the beginning. Because what you want to do is preventive measures. You don't want to let things happen, and then you talk about control. Well, if you prevented it, then you wouldn't have to worry about controlling it. If you had caught it before it happened and stuff. So a lot of things, you catch it before it happens, you know what's going to happen. If I till a piece of ground and then I leave it bare for a whole year, and then it's going to erode. But if I put borders, field borders around it, grass it over, and then make sure I protect it, then I've already prevented some that I know what's going to happen. If I had a till and left it bare and then put any cover on it, you know it's going to wash away. So that's what we try to encourage, not to allow things that we know is foreseeable that are going to happen, and we just allow it to happen. Then you got to call for help. Then you know, and then it gets expensive. Then you know you got a problem on your hand because you want somebody to help you pay for it.
They'll be in the NRCS office.
Yeah, in the NRCS office. Want them to help get you out of it.
Does everybody understand what Delaney said when he said field borders? No, okay, I see some shaking of heads.
Yeah, field borders, you don't farm up the fence line to fence line or property line to property line. You don't just till all the way up. You leave yourself a border, grassed border at the edge around that perimeter that it would intercept any type of runoff or erosion. You leave yourself some permanent cover that you can still protect what's in the interior. Because if you farm fence line to fence line, don't leave yourself any protection runoff, then you're gonna lose what you tried to till, you know. So you're gonna lose the whole 9 yards. So that perimeter, if it's taking up a half an acre, a quarter acre, that's a good thing. Well, I can't plant my peas, I can't plant this. Well, were you able to plant what's in there? So, but you ain't gonna be able to plant that if you don't provide that protection, that field border. And the field borders are grass, permanent cover around that perimeter of a field, of a patch, of a garden or whatever, that will prevent erosion from taking place. Mm-hmm. It'll prevent that.
And sometimes we hear that, you may hear field border, you may hear filter strip, or critical area planting, buffer strip, or even hedgerows. These are, they're similar in their functionality. And they're all there to be part of that farming ecosystem. They're not your cash crop, but they're used around your cash crop in order to, you know, as Delaney said, keep cover out there all the time. But this is also where you kind of strategically think about what you want to plant out there, because that's where your pollinators are going to be, you know, and other beneficials that you might want to attract there. So, and sometimes those things can, you know, you can grow berries, you can grow other things within them. So, but it's an important part of your overall infrastructure for your farm.
Right.
Those areas.
Right. And we call those non-planted zones, which are they are critical because they help protect the planted zones. Okay. I mean, you don't, like I said, you don't plant that whole acre. You leave that in order to be able to have that continuous healthy planted zone. So you got to have non-planted areas in order, like I say, field borders to protect what's inside there. If you don't, you're going to lose the whole everything. Deep tillage is when I suggest that we your orientation is, if you're going to practice good soil health, in the original time, you want to deep till to bust up that compacted zone, which happened over the years, over time. You want to break that up. You want to deep till probably down to 10 inches to a foot. That's the equipment that you're going to get investment on the front end. Then you can start to reduce minimum till or no till. But you want to break that, loosen that ground up, give it good aeration, get full space and stuff. Because oftentimes, you don't know what the history of that farm was, that land was at one time. It could have been something like some type of place where somebody had a barn or somebody had a feedlot or something. It's compacted over time and stuff. It's compact like cement almost. And then if you don't break it up, then you got that problem to deal with. And you go out trying to commence farming, well, I ain't got to do this, I'm just start planting my seeds. And then you get stunted crop and stuff, you get good deep poor infiltration and stuff, because you should have broken that hard pan up. The hard pan is going to generally accumulate over time, even minimum traffic. If you had livestock on it, like you were saying, it serves as a compaction. They're compacting things all the time and stuff. And then you allow it to set for a while, settle, then you got a restrictive zone right up near the surface, right up where your roots. Those need to be going down, trying to collect water supply and stuff. So you need to remove that out of your system, remove that compacted zone through deep tillage. And it's a good investment would have a commercial person come in and with a heavy equipment, plows or whatever, tillage or disc equipment, and remove that, and you're off to a good start. But if you have a compacted zone, you can punch down, you hit something hard down about 8 inches, and you got a problem if you don't remove it.
But it's also true in this, just so everybody understands, that everybody's clear, part of the goal and that we're trying to promote out here is you do the deep tillage initially, but you don't want to do the deep tillage every single year. That's where it becomes problematic. That's where you disrupt your topsoil that you've been trying to generate.
Yeah, right.
All right. So you do it once to break that up, and then that's where you can begin to practice more minimal till.
Till, reduced till, whatever. Yeah. No till. Yeah.
So is there any other way to break that? I have mine, I put the, like if you have a raised bed and it's compacted under there, and I put that purchased soil on top of it. Is it gonna eventually go down in that soil?
Well, you know, when I came out there, I said next time you clear that and before you next planting season, get that deep tillage, get that broken up. And then you don't have to break it up, yes ma'am. But that was our yard at one time, so it never been broken up.
We did that part that you said. I was thinking about the little raised beds I had on the side. It's the same under there. So I guess I need to do that too.
Need to do that too. Crop rotation, crop residue, reduced tier, rotation cover. We'll cover that on another subject today. We'll talk about it a little bit. Improvements, manage the amount of orientation, distribution of your crops and stuff. From the surface year round while living in soil disturbance. Orientation of your crops, we talk about catching that good sunlight, that morning east sunlight. We want to make sure we maximize that. If you get that good morning sunlight, they crop respond to that. It's kind of like waking up. But they gotta wait till midday before they wake up. Then somebody behind that crop ain't gonna be as good as tall as all that. That crop that got that good morning sun. Okay, but to the 4 hours. The right place, the right rate, the right time, the right place, the right source. Everything has to be the right application type of fertilizer, at the right rate, the right time. You don't just fertilize because I think it's the right time. I ain't got nothing to do today, so I'm going to go out and fertilize. That might not be the right time, you know, because you ain't have nothing to do today. You got to know when the plants say that's the right timing and stuff, you know. So.
But and people don't, you know, when you're doing your soil test, that's when you're getting the right rate. I mean, that's when you're thinking about doing things, you know, as opposed to just. Well, you know, my neighbor said,
my neighbor said.
he said do this, and he had good results, you know, doing this. I'm going to take that and throw it on out there. And
yeah, you can't go by that. You don't know what following Jones is. You know how that works. Technical and financial assistance available, and Mr. Liddell, he'll talk with y'all about that. But yeah, NRCS field office, they provide that assistance to you, and I would take advantage of that. You know, you go and sign up and get your information filled out and get on record. And that's one of the things you can do now before you even get started. You know, you can go and see what you need to do on that.
Yeah, go to FSA, get your records established. That's gonna be the first step anyway. Because we can't do anything until you get those records established. You get a farm number, track number, and then you can come on next door to us. Because we're gonna always be in the same office, FSA, NRCS. So get that, come see us, and we'll set up a field visit, you know, come out there and look, see what you got going, what's your resource concerns, what we can do, you know. And I kind of like to do the field visit before the application, as it kind of tells me, you know, what we can put on the application. But some people prefer to get the application first, you know. But yeah, just go to whatever county you're in, come on to the office. I know y'all said Holmes County, we're there, so
Right.
come on in.
That's it.
But does anybody have a farm number? All right, we have a couple farm numbers in here, so we don't have farm numbers.
I'm working on one.
You're working on yours. You're working on yours. Okay.
Just have to take the deed and
Deed,
driver's
yeah.
license up there, they say. So
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah, and that's how you know, that way, anytime anybody look you up in the system, we can just put, okay, this is her farm, her track, you know. So all of that, you know, it's just so, because sometimes people might sell you land and, you know, they don't go and change things in the system. So when we look it up, it's coming up under somebody else's name and
That's where I'm
everything,
at
so.
with this right now. We bought it from the state, but they never, our local chancery never updated the system. So right now it's not even showing under my name. So
Wow.
they're kind of dragging their feet on that. So I'm
Right.
with them.
Wow. Wow.
What about lease property?
As long if you have a lease agreement, you can still come in and get in the programs with us. Even though, you know, in the system it'll be their name, but they'll have you down as an operator and everything. And what you have in that lease agreement is the same as the deed for. But I will say, sometimes it's good to try to get your lease about 5 to 10 years, something like that, because you don't want to put in all that money and getting stuff, you know, to the way you want it, and then they come say, yeah, we're gonna pull the lease. So now you just spent all that money. from
So
this.
this would be a good place to talk up, and I think we're on the last slide actually for this section here too. But this would be a good place to talk up NRCS in general, you know. But there are two real reasons to go work with NRCS. One is because they do provide matching funds for a lot of practices out there, about 140 different practices in all. And, you know, maybe about 25 or 30 of them might apply to, you know, what you want to do is, you know, smallish kind of farms that you could get some you know, funding for, some assistance for. It's a contract, so you go into an agreement, but they do partial funding of that for you or with you. But the other reason is just for technical assistance.
Yeah.
I mean, they can provide technical assistance that a lot of people aren't aware of, and a lot of people kind of, well, I don't know about, you know, USDA, I want to do that.
And it's free.
Yeah. It's free.
technical assistance.
Free technical assistance. If nothing else, use them for the free technical assistance. But if you're interested in working in an NRCS program or interested in getting some kind of an insurance program through USDA or even a loan, you're going to have a farm number established. Yeah. So you want to go ahead and make sure you do that too.
And like I say, you're interested in acquiring some land, they provide that assistance too, you know, going out, looking, doing an assessment of this land, the condition, whether it has some wet places on it, that would cause a concern if you tried to commence farming it. So we'll go out and be able to identify those places for you.
All right, folks, I think we have come to lunch. So before we do anything here, first of all, Delaney, thank you. That was an excellent presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much. We are going to do irrigation. We're going to start with that when we get back from lunch. When I say get back, it's not like we're going anywhere. But we have lunch that catered here, so I think it is now set up. We can walk around and get it, and we can come back here. During the lunchtime, once everybody is settled, we did an interview with a farmer, and we'll play that back over lunch, so you can just kind of at your leisure, eat and watch and get questions, get support if you need to, run to the restroom, do whatever you need. And then we will start back up here in about 40 minutes, with the irrigation program. And then we'll talk about cover crops and crop rotations after that. All right. So